think they changed the title.
Now, did they give you the information?
The microphone's gonna go.
Parliamentary procedure say you got 3 minutes to debate. No, somebody get 30.
I'd like to call to order the City of Riviera Beach regular board meeting, February 19, 2020, 6:34 p.m. Madam Roll Call.
Mayor Ronnie Felder.
Here.
Chairperson Kashamba Miller Anderson.
Present.
Chair Pro Tem Julia Botel.
Here.
Councilperson Trodrick McCoy.
Here.
Councilperson Shirley Lanier.
Here.
Councilperson Douglas Lawson.
Here.
City Manager Jonathan Evans.
Present.
City Clerk Claudine Anthony is present. City Attorney Don Nguyen. Here. You may proceed.
We'll have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman McCoy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions?
Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to pull items 2, 3, 4, and 5 from the consent agenda, and I believe the city clerk has an item that is going to be read into the record to revise the title. 6.
So we're pulling items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 from the
Yes.
consent. What's the pleasure of the board? Do you want to hear it after the approval of the consent agenda or at the beginning of the regular agenda?
I think, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think after consent is fine.
Okay.
Okay.
2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, you said we're
Yep.
pulling?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, Madam Chair.
And I'd like to pull I'm sorry, we're not at pulling, but since we're here, number 9, just so we can have a presentation. What about the number 7 that we had this revision for?
Madam Chair, members of the board, there was a revision to the heading for item number 7 on the consent agenda. The heading of the resolution will now read, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving the transfer of funds in the amount of $2,500 from the contingency account to the educational activity account to Inlet Grove Community High School for the marine technology educational enhancement opportunities for the benefit of the students within the community and providing an effective date. You all were provided with a copy of the addition, deletion, substitution, and revision sheet.
All right.
You work? Oh,
Yeah, it's right up there on the counter there. All right. Any disclosures by council?
well, Madam Chair, I wanted to do an addition.
Okay, what is that?
I wanted to see if the board would indulge me for a 3 presentation.
Not tonight, Mr. McCoy.
Oh, okay, I was
All
just
right,
checking.
thank you. Disclosures by council? Can we have a motion to accept the, adopt the
So
agenda?
moved.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, roll call?
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier. Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Members of the public shall be given a total of 3 minutes to speak on all items listed on the consent agenda. Any person who would like to speak on consent agenda items, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers and give it to the staff prior to the adoption of the agenda. All matters for the consent agenda are listed and are considered to be routine, and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a councilperson so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Mr. Evans referenced items number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 being pulled. I pulled number 9 for presentation, and do we have anyone else that would like to pull an item from consent? All right, can we have a motion to accept the agenda with those items pulled?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All right. Item number 2.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing the city manager to approve change orders in an amount not to exceed 10% of the total contract award to the Vance Construction Company in the amount of $1,389,173.35 and provide an effective date. Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
So moved.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
point of clarification. So if I'm correct, I thought you pulled number 9, the youth empowerment item.
We pulled 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9.
But I thought we were gonna do 2 through 6 after the consent.
I thought this is the end of consent.
No, but number 9 was pulled off of consent, so we have to take that first and separate.
2, 3, 4, and 5 are consent too. 3, 4, 5, 6 are consent as well.
Right.
All 1 through 12 is consent.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, but when you said 2 through 6, I thought we were pulling it off the consent agenda altogether.
We
And then-
did. Yeah, we did, and then we go,
That's the question, do we want to hear it after consent? And that's what I agreed to recommend.
that's what we're
after.
doing.
But wouldn't we take number 9 first?
No, because number 1 through 12 are under consent.
Okay,
And 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9 were pulled.
okay,
All right, you're welcome. So we have a motion on the floor? Do we,
second.
all right. Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I can have Mr. Randy Sherman, the Director of Finance and Administrative Services, provide this presentation and subsequent presentations. That this item relates to a couple of the other items that were pulled from the consent agenda. Director Sherman?
Yes, good evening.
Good
Randy
evening.
Sherman, Director of Finance and Administrative Services. Item 2 is a correction to the resolution. When we adopted the resolution awarding Vance Construction the contract to install the floating docks down at the Marina, the resolution did not include providing the manager with the authority to sign change orders up to 10%. The picture up here is this is Dock G. They actually finished it today, but this is installation that was going on last week. We expect to actually finish this project in the next 60 to 90 days. And what we're looking for is to give the manager that authority so we can stay within that 60 to 90 days. We're not anticipating any change orders at this time, but again, we just like to amend the resolution so the manager has that authority.
All right. Did we have any consent, public comment cards?
No, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
I'm sure you probably said that already, but I need to hear it again. Any questions from the board? All right. Madam Clerk, thank you.
Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Item number 3.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing a change order in the amount of $237,675 for Marine Tech North America, Inc. of St. Petersburg, Florida, a subsidiary of Marine Tech Group of Helsinki, Finland, authorizing the finance director to establish a budget and make payments for same and provide an effective date.
So moved.
Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right. We have a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I can have the Director of Finance and Administrative Service, Mr. Randy Sherman, present this item.
Good evening again, Randy Sherman.
Good.
The slide that you have up in front of you is a layout of the marina, which includes both Phase 1, Phase 2. Currently, as we just talked about in the prior issue, this item up here in this upper left-hand corner, that's Dock G. That's the one that's completed, and then over here we have E, which is down here at the very southernmost point, and then F of these larger ones up here. When the city issued the RFP for the construction of the docks included E, F, and G. When we awarded the contract to Marina, they were selected for all 3 docks, or all 3 piers, but we only awarded them at that time F and G. At that point, we had 2 fine grants. One was for F, one was for G. We did not give them the go-ahead on E because we did not have the fine grant in hand at that time. We now have that grant in hand, so what we'd like to do is issue a change order in the amount of $237,695 for the construction of the docks right down here again in E. The reason this is coming back is the $237,000 exceeds the manager's authority of 10%.
All right. Any questions from the board? All right, Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Item number 4.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, awarding RFP number 982-194 supply vertical boat lifts at the City of Riviera Beach Marina to Golden Manufacturing, Inc. of North Fort Myers, Florida, in the amount of $186,588, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute the contract for supply vertical boat lifts, authorizing the Director of Finance and Administrative Services to make payment under this contract from project number 18058 and provide an effective date. Madam Chair, we do have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mr. Manager.
Madam Chair, if I can have the Finance Director and Director of Administrative Services, Mr. Randy Sherman, make this presentation.
Again, Randy Sherman. This item is the award of the contract for the purchase of boat lifts. We've spoken a couple times already about Docks G. These lifts will go out on G. What we are doing is purchasing 6 boat lifts. Ours will not look like this with the cover, but this is the best picture I could find. So here's the boat lift here. This goes up and down, goes into the water, the boat backs in, and then it lifts back out of the water. So again, we did issue an RFP. Golden was selected, and we'd like is the authority to purchase 6 boat lifts from Golden.
Okay. Public comment?
Fane Lozman.
Fane Lozman,
Good evening.
Singer Island. If you haven't got your flu shot, get it. I spent a month trying to get over the flu, and I just got over it last week. I remember, because I fought it out, Emma Bates, myself, Andrew Bird, we were intimately involved in the fighting to keep the marina a public facility, and with the referendums, and then going over the detailed plans of how the bond that the taxpayers funded were to be used as far as how to construct the marina. Okay, if you guys go back maybe 10 years, 8 to 10 years, you'll see that there was no boat lifts in that plan. There was in-water slips. There was a big fight that there wasn't enough in-water slips, that some slips were being taken up by giant boats and they were displacing 6 smaller boats. But there certainly wasn't anything about boat lifts being there. The reason you have a boat lift, it keeps the boat out of the water. That was what the old dry storage building did. They took a forklift, they put it up, and they put it in the dry storage building. And a decision was made, we were not going to have dry storage anymore, and this is a form of dry storage. Except instead of using a forklift to get it out, you use a boat lift to get it out. You know, no one's going to go and challenge that, but if you're true to your word and to the integrity of the bond that was floated, you would say, you know something, we can't put in these 6 boat lifts, because those 6 boat lifts are taking away in-water slips. And the entire physical marina was supposed to have boats stored in the water. They weren't supposed to have boat slips. And that's quite an expensive thing, $186,000. That's $30-some-odd thousand a slip. Basically, what's happening, I can see, you know, the loggerhead, the manager of the loggerhead, his family, and his buddies, they'll keep their boats out of the water, but they would deny the taxpayers the opportunity to have an in-water slip. What you could do is we could go back and see if I'm right. You could pull this off the agenda and say, I want to see the plans where it said, when they approved the bond, that we were going to have 6 boat lifts. I'm going to say it didn't. I'm going to say it gave a designated amount of in-water slips, you know, 137, and now they've taken away some of that in-water slips. In-water, I mean, the boat sits in the water with these boat lifts. Yeah, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that because I think that's a bait and switch on the taxpayers, that you've changed the layout of what they approved, and you're taking away in-water slips, and that kind of activity should be done in a dry storage building.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? All right, Madam Clerk?
Madam
Oh,
Chair.
yes.
So, I do see the bond referendum from '04. Was there a scope that was sent to the voters as to what, I guess, was it general in nature, or was it specific as to what those dollars were to be used for?
Madam Chair, if I could have Mr. John Sprague address that.
Good evening.
Good evening.
When the original bond issue, $50 million that the county did, we had the fortune that we were allocated $5 million of that. Originally was going to rebuild the marina. When we got into some of the engineering or
Madam Chair, may
whatever,
I interrupt? You said originally was to build the marina,
rebuild,
rebuild the marina.
hatch it.
Okay.
But when the engineers got into it, it was determined it was a waste of money because of the quality of the concrete, the damage that had been done over the years, the age of it. Fixed slips are not very popular anymore. Floating docks is what people want to rent. Also with global warming, you know, that allows sea level rise and the boats rise up with it along with the docks. We build them for Cat 3 hurricanes. This facility is warranted by the manufacturer for Cat 3. But anyway, that original money, we were able to stop it at about 3.2, if I remember right. The rest had already been spent for various things at the marina. That 3.2 then we used for the initial matches to get the original grants that started the marina, which I want to say we're about 25 million at the moment. We've been able to get major grant money for a good portion of that. But anyway, when we go forward with design, and of course, when we started this in 2009 or 2010, somewhere in there, you know, over time, boating has changed. Boats got bigger. Boats on lifts got bigger. These are 32 and 40,000 pound lifts. There are people that don't want to trailer boats, and also a great number of the dry stacks like ours was designed way back for 25-foot boats, and that's not the market. You know, you basically build, it's like apartments or whatever. If you're going to build houses, condos, or whatever, you build them for the market that the market is looking for, so the city can return the most money on their investment. And this gives a few slips somewhere at Palm Beach Inlet that we can put 45 to 50-foot boats in a lift that keeps the barnacles or whatever because they're outboards. And it gives them a place to go. We get the best return for that. But that was not, the original bond issue never got into the kind of construction. We knew how many slips we had. With the redevelopment of the marina, the expansion of the marina, at the end of the day, we're going to wind up with about the same number of slips, but we're going to have several thousand feet of marginal dockage, which depending upon how you want to measure all those additional boats. So we're going to be way over what the capacity originally was, what the marina had in it. But the dry stacks are different, it's just, there's not too many dry stacks, without getting into a great deal of money, of the lifts and whatever, that handle those size boats. But also, for a customer, my wife decides after dinner she wants to go out in her boat. Normally can't do that because the dry stack is closed and you can't get your boat out. With this, they can walk down the dock just like they would if the boat was in the water, climb aboard it, push a button, lifts goes down the water, they go out, they enjoy the boat, they come back in, push a button, it comes up, and they go home. So that's kind of the story. I understand what Fane's saying, but we have way exceeded what the capacity was at that time with the bond. Yeah, there weren't any lifts entertained at that point, but the dry stack was done away with because the cost of replacing it, it was outmoded. There were very few concrete piles or concrete and steel columns that were attached to that building. The whole thing needed to come down, which the council action did that.
All right, Mr. McCoy.
Follow up. So, Mr. Sprague, and I don't want to be accusatory or anything, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So, the original intent for the 2004 bond referendum for the marina, I guess this was done with Palm Beach County?
Yes, sir.
And was it specific as to what those funds should have been used for?
And they were used for exactly what it was, to give money to the city to rebuild or replace the marina, which was done with that 33 million, whatever it is, if you wanted to double or whatever with grants, which is what we did. We passed that 6 million mark a very long time ago and what went into it.
Follow up.
Yes.
And is your understanding and your belief that the marina, to rebuild it, includes providing lifts?
Marinas are moving toward putting lifts in. If you
Let me
go up and
clarify. So do you believe that the referendum question that was proffered in 2004 and approved by the voters was intended to encompass changing and improving the lifts?
It was for water access for the public. They never got into the size of slips, the numbers of slips. We had a dedicated number which we use in permitting. In other words, we had 144 slips at that time, if you counted all the little ones and whatever. We use that for permitting because as we move forward, that's like a vested number that we can rebuild to without more issues involved in permitting. We've stayed with that number. When we get done, according to the Corps or whatever, we'll have 144 slips when we're done. But we're going to have several thousand feet of marginal dockage. And what that is, instead of a boat goes into a slip, it's side ties. The advantage of those is today we could have 450-foot boats come in and fill that, or you could have one 500, or you could have a ton of 26-footers. It all depends upon what the demand is on a time. So transient dockage, when you have people traveling through, the flexibility of that kind of dockage compared to fixed slips is much more utilized, and the return is frankly better because we don't turn boats away. But there was no violation of the bond. The bond was to help. Pahokee got it. There was a number of cities that received that money, and it was to assist them to build marinas and to assist government. And I worked that bond for the Marine Industry Association of Palm Beach County when the county commission did that. And that was what that bond was for, not just details of the kinds of slips, the size of slips, and whatever. That's all up to what makes the best marina.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So how are we going to ensure that the typical average recreational boater has the same type of access? Because it seems that this is public money going for private amenities.
This is public money building a public marina for the public, period. Nobody owns that except for the general public. They come in, they rent the slip, they go into the office, say, I got a 30-foot boat, or I got 60, or whatever it happens to be, and I would like to rent a slip. The city rents it to them. If the person that has a boat that would like to have it out of the water, they're going to go to a marina that's got some lifts because they don't want it left in the water. That's general public. It's no different than the person that wants it in the west lift. It's just a different kind of, we're creating this marina to be competitive, make the best return we can for the city and return on their investment, and that we can offer all the amenities to the general public that a top-notch marina does. And the intent is to give us the #1 marina in Palm Beach County.
Anything else?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, anyone else? Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Thank you.
Councilperson Watson?
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier?
No.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
That motion is approved with Councilperson Lanier dissenting.
Item number 5.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, adopting a debt management policy to establish parameters and provide guidance governing the issuance, management, continuing evaluation of and reporting on all debt obligations issued by the City of Riviera Beach, and to provide for the preparation and implementation necessary to assure compliance and conformity with this policy and provide an effective date. Madam Chair, we do have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Evans.
Madam Chair, if I can have Randy Sherman, Director of Finance and Administrative Services, present this item.
Good evening again,
Good
Randy
evening.
Sherman. The slide that I've put up on the screen here is actually prepared by Moody's. Moody's is one of the rating agencies that looks at the city's debt and our ability to borrow and certainly our ability to pay back. What I want to do is, focus on the part up there that talks about management. That's the yellow. And what these policies do is they really address that slice of the pie, which is what they look at that's 20% of your credit rating. In 2013, the city actually adopted its first debt policy. That was right before we went out and issued the utility bonds and the stormwater bonds and the public improvement bonds for the streets. And again, we take these policies, the rating agencies look at them, and that's how they evaluate our ability to manage the community and our debt structures. So the debt policy was approved in 2013. It has not been updated since that point. The reason we are bringing back this one in item 6, which is the investment policy, as you heard at the previous meeting, if we're going to go back out and need to borrow, building a water treatment plant, now is the time to start preparing for that. What these policies do is they'll give us as much positive spin on the community, and it helps when the rating agencies look at us. Let me just give you an indication. Right now, the city is rated as AA. Okay, the utility district is rated at A+. Okay, the difference between a AA and an A+ right now is about 20 basis points. So if A+ is paying 4%, a AA is paying 3.8%. On $100 million, that's over $4.5 million of interest that you can save. So it's real important to take care of the little things. And then again, we'll address the other slices of the pie as we obviously get closer to the market. But that's why we're bringing this policy back. Again, this policy is 99.9% the same as it was in 2013. But again, it's a little bit refreshed. It's been reformatted. I did send it to the Association of Public Treasurers so that they could review it. They sent it back, gave us a certificate of excellence on the policy. So we're bringing this policy back for your consideration this evening.
All right, public comments?
Mary Bram.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
It's Mayor Bram to the City Manager, Mayor, and the presiding council reps. We know as a community base, we are in great mode here for our infrastructure. Mr. Sherman has given you all a little highlights here, but not just only that. It is other things why this is critical here. Because from federal and state laws, our city charter, ordinance, finance, this help finance our construction for our rehabilitations, acquisitions of our infrastructure, and other debt assets, refinancing existing debts that we have. The purpose of meeting is governmental obligations to its citizens and stakeholders. And we are citizens and stakeholders in this city here. And we know that we have a lot of things that is on the table and on our plate here, and we need to move forward with this in order to do the things that we as a city needs to do. We have procrastinated, we have logged down long enough. We need to move out of this complacency and realize that we need to move on some things in this city here. And we will not be bogged down anymore. I'm glad to be back in the chambers. I never went anywhere because I've been communicating vastly with the community. Sometimes you have to sit back and take a real inventory so that you can keep the harvest going where it needs to be going. And you as a board here, you need to get on the ball here now. You need to take charge where you need to take charge, hands off the city manager. You do your job and let the city manager do his. So this debt service is critical for this city here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that completes public comment.
All right, questions or comments from the board? All right, Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Item number 6.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, adopting an investment policy to set forth the investment objectives and parameters for the management of public funds of the City of Riviera Beach, Florida. This policy is designed to ensure the prudent management of public funds, the availability of operating and capital funds when needed, and an investment return competitive with comparable funds and financial market indices, and provide an effective date. Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mr. Manager?
Madam Chair, if I can have a Director of Finance and Administrative Services, Mr. Randy Sherman, present this item.
Okay, so just as Randy Sherman, just envision the same slide is still up there. So again, this policy is similar to the debt policy, is addressing that management slice of the credit rating when we go and make some presentation down the line when we go to issue debt for the utility district. The policy, I will tell you, the oldest one I have found in the city was 2007. It's not critical. It's not critical. In 2013, we did update the policy, addressing some of the issues that the old policy did not necessarily address during the recession. So we updated it in 2013. We tweaked it a little bit in 2016 to add a new investment class and kind of stretch the limits a little bit on some of the investment categories. And all we're doing tonight is actually removing an investment class. The policy allowed for investments in Sallie Mae. Sallie Mae is no longer a government agency, it's a private entity. So we need to strip that out because it's not an eligible investment. Again, similar to the debt policy, I did send this to the Association of Public Treasurers. Again, they were the ones that pointed out the Sallie Mae, which is why we're bringing it back, and gave the city the certificate of excellence for this policy. So again, we're bringing this forward so we can, again, address that one slice of the pie.
All right, questions, comments from the board? All right, Madam Clerk, thank you.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Item number 9.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving the transfer of funds in the amount of $35,000 from contingency to the Youth Empowerment Program 2020 College Tour, account number 101-12103-540 and provide an effective date. Madam Chair, we do have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
So moved. We have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I can have Ms. Valerie Grimsley, Director of the Youth Empowerment Program, to give you a brief update concerning the YEP summer tour or spring break tour and the college campuses, and the intent behind the request of the appropriation that's before you this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Valerie Grimsley, the Director of Youth Empowerment. This is our annual education college tour for students of youth empowerment and also the surrounding areas of Riviera Beach. We provide this college tour so that we can enlighten our students on the importance of education. But this year we did something a little different. We are creating a Riviera Beach Government Day in Washington, D.C. So we've been working with the city lobbyists to either have the students do a half a day at Capitol Hill to either speak to Representative Hastings or to Senator Marco Rubio or Senator Scott, whomever is available, to spend some time to talk about how government actually runs and how it affects Riviera Beach. So our students will be enlightened on how government runs, why it's such an important thing to vote, why it's such an important thing to get out and pay attention to what's going on around them. In addition, we always do history as a part of our educational tour. So this year, they're going to tour some of the things that are in and around, as well as go to Hampton and Howard University.
Great, great. I think we have public comment. We have public comment, and then we'll come back. Thank you so much.
Thane Lozman, Mary Bram, Doretta Polk.
My comment relative to item number 9 has to do with the consent agenda rules and regulations, as all matters listed under this item considered to be routine. Certainly, there's nothing routine about the amount of $35,000 from the city contingency to the youth empowerment. People may not know what that is. $35,000 is not buying, light bulbs for City Hall. $186,000 is not a ministerial item. Whoever prepared this agenda is putting items that are not ministerial in nature. Go read Robert's Rules of Order. Ministerial things are, let's pay our electric bill. Let's, minor things. Anything that's over $10,000, whatever it is, in other municipalities is on the regular agenda, or $20,000. But when you have items here for $180,000, you did the right thing to pull them. The question is, why are they on there to begin with? Because it's confusing to people. There ought to be somebody that go through the agenda and said anything over $25,000 shouldn't be on the consent agenda. The $875,000 settlement that goes all to my lawyers, by the way, and reimburses me for my legal fees, why is that on the consent agenda? That's not a ministerial thing that happened once in the city's history. We need to get the consent agenda put back to where it is everywhere else. Ministerial, routine, run-of-the-mills. All these things that were pulled today should have been on the regular agenda so that people would know about it, and maybe they wanted to come and comment on multiple ones, but they didn't get that opportunity because the consent agenda is routinely screwed up.
Thank you. Comment from the
Mary
board?
Bram,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Doretta Polk.
Miss Mary Bram,
Good evening.
good evening to the board. Miss Valerie Grimsley, she is no newcomer to this city here. She's very versed, not just in this municipality, but outside of this municipality. Why, Miss Bram knows, as well as others, as well as parents, as well as professionals. She serves a vast amount of children in this city. She has a vast program in this city for these children. I know some of those names. She has 2 Jeremiahs and 1 Simone. and one is just as sharp as a whip. Why? Because Ms. Bram goes over there, as well as other community peoples, so that we can see and get involved. And I always have encouraged the board to do the same thing. We need to stop reinventing the wheels here. We have a vast amount of program in this city here that meets the criteria of what you're trying to achieve, as well as our city with our children. See, the Boys and Girls Club does not want the children that the city incorporates. So whatever we need to do in order to help these kids here, we need to do those things there. Some things here, you put a label on what can come back, what should not come back. This is why we're in the predicament that we're in now, because we've been micromanaging everything. Some things we need to move, and some things we need to lay aside all of this here. Well, then what should come back? $35,000, that's just a drop in the darn bucket from what this city here has lost, and how wasteful that we have been in this city here. We as residents, we need to do everything that we can to show this city and our kids here we are better than what anybody else says that they are. Ms. Bram, stand here. Let me say this for the record. I have no children in these programs. So my vast interest is for all of these kids in this city that needs an opportunity and a chance to show us who and what they can be. So I wanted to just to clarify that. So when I speak, no, Ms. Bram does not have any children in these type of programs. But if I did, I'd be doing the same thing, voicing my concern of how we can meet the needs of this city with our kids. The more we can do for them, it shows that somebody loves them. Because within some of these households, you all would be amazed. Love is not even spoken. I've heard it. I've seen it for myself. So I do not stand here talking off the top of my head about these kids and how we need to engage with them and let them see the opportunities that exist for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doretta Polk.
Good evening.
Good
My name
evening.
is Doretta Polk. I'm a resident of Riviera Beach. And I just want to say Ms. Grimsley is doing a phenomenal job with our children. I don't think no cost is too much for our children to promote them up a higher level. This is a future city manager, council persons, mayor. This is our future. If we don't invest in our children, who will? Another thing concerning Mrs. Grimsley, I volunteer with Mrs. Dawson and Ms. Matthews, feeding the children in the park on 5th Street. Mrs. Grimsley has a youth empowerment starting from K to 12th grade tutoring. That's absolutely marvelous. So we don't want any one of the council personnel to reject this $35,000. Just like she said, it is just a drop in the bucket for our children. Let's put a value on our children. And if Mr. Lozeman doesn't know about the youth empowerment, maybe he needs to come over. It's near the Lindsay Davis on 28th Street. Maybe he needs to come visit that organization and see what it's all about. Instead of coming up here with what shouldn't be up here. When it comes to our children, nothing is too high for our children. We have to invest in our children. Because like I say, who will? And I thank you very much. And this young lady is doing an outstanding job. And I hope not one of you decline this. Not one. I thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it.
That's it, Madam Chair.
All right. Questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think that the city's PR department, media, need to do a write-up about this Washington, D.C. days so that it can get some press regarding what we're doing with our children in the city.
Absolutely. I think that's important to highlight this, and I'm sure we can make sure that we get the information out. And they've been our lobbyists in DC have been exceptional trying to coordinate with Ms. Grimsley to get the students access to their local representatives here. So it's going to be a very rewarding tour, and a lot of folks. I had the opportunity to spend some time with Ms. Grimsley and her team, and hearing that some of our kids, this is the first time that they could potentially get on an airplane or even leave Palm Beach County, I think is just so challenging when we're talking about kids that are 15, 18 years old, and they've maybe never left, Palm Beach County. So it gives them an opportunity to broaden their horizon and perspectives. And we do have a minimal cost for the individuals that are selecting to go. It's a cost of $200, but that money would be reinvested to assist in buying food and little trinkets for them as they go to DC. So I think this is a great opportunity, a great trip. When Ms. Grimsley provided me with the concept, I said we have to find the money within the budget to make it happen, because this is one of those situations where these kids invariably will always remember this trip, and hopefully, and I know they will, they'll end up paying it forward to the city in some form or some capacity. Even in those situations where the $200 may be too much, we're even looking at the opportunity to volunteer, give some sweat equity to the organization to pay back that investment. But we're making the investment on our young people, and I'm sure it's going to be a remarkable tour, and I can't wait to have them come back and share what they were able to experience. And we would like to indulge the board in the presentation from the young people that attend the trip, so they can share what they've learned and share a PowerPoint presentation on the experience.
Thank you. Yes.
Ms. Grimsley. So last year we didn't do this, correct? Wasn't it canceled?
No. We didn't do it last year.
Was it planned last year?
We had a college tour planned last year, and I pulled it because I wanted the college tours to be a little bit more productive for our kids. So we sat back and redeveloped and restructured how we look at college tours and educating our kids. So last year we put the money in education instead of actually taking them on a college tour.
The money you put in education that you would have used for the college tour, was that the county's portion?
Yes, that was the county's portion.
Is it the same $18,000 that they have this year?
Yes.
Okay. Did you identify dates?
Yes, they're doing spring break, which is the 23rd through the 27th March.
Okay. Couple of other things. I was looking at I certainly support it, and I think I've shared this with you a number of times. Mr. Evans, you said that you had to find the money from somewhere. What exactly did you do from contingency?
We're pulling this from contingency, $35,000.
Just the manager's contingency?
This is the citywide contingency. Because we understand that there's vacancies within the organization, so we're going to have salary savings, but the most expeditious way is to effectively pull it from contingency to fund that, and then as we come back throughout the year to true up, we'll true up the appropriate accounts.
Okay, so provided we get the legislative appropriations for youth empowerment next year, are we going to look to, I guess, put this same $35,000 in the budget next year for them to do the college tour?
And that's something that Ms. Grimsley and I talked about. At some of our programs, we would look at making some modifications. So maybe not every year they go to DC, but maybe we set up an opportunity where they do experience a trip other places. Maybe it's Tallahassee one time and those types of things. But we certainly want to promote allowing for our young people to leave our community and experience other parts of the country and other parts of our state, for that matter. I didn't put any restrictions or stipulations that Ms. Grimsley has to take the next group to UCF. So there's no stipulations associated with this $35,000, but subsequent investments may have that stipulation. And I think Councilman Lawson would agree with that.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Grimsley. This is exactly what we're looking for here in the community. What I would love to see for our following years is to incorporate the trips to going to Tallahassee, to possibly going to our League of Cities conference, to taking the kids to different areas throughout the country so they can have these experiences. So if we can budget and prepare for it so that next year's budget can allocate the funds to take them to these different locations, that'd be great.
And that segues into the youth council, which will be coming up.
Right. One of the things, the spin-off of this is obviously these types of experiences are great marketing tools for us to get our youth council and establish. And at the state of the city, we're going to be rolling out signups for programs such as our Citizen Leadership Academy. If you're interested in our youth council, those types of things, our advisory boards, that's going to be a major push for us as part of the state of the city. So you'll hear a lot of information about that. But this trip is, I think, the launching pad for our young people to participate in our youth council, to understand how government works. And Ms. Grimsley has also communicated to me that before they go to DC, they're going to have some conversations and discussions about governance on a local level to provide a little bit of foundation for the young folks so they can understand how things happen here locally, but then how Tallahassee, or actually DC, has a significant role in the things that happen here in our community.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Last question. So, Ms. Grimsley's youth empowerment budget, is that a part of Parks and Rec? Because I know they did something big on Friday with the senior.
No, it's not a program as part of Parks and Rec. It's associated with the city manager's budget. They happen to, work with Parks and Rec a lot, and they share the same campus as a recreation facility, but they are separate.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
And just to piggyback off Councilwoman Lanier's point, we really need to just have enough coverage of this trip, making sure that we have media following them so we can kind of tell our own story and create the narrative for what our city represents. So if we can definitely get the coverage, Ms. Grimsley putting a press release together for the trip and the dates to get it out, that we can have them following the children.
Quick question, Madam Chair. Ms. Grimsley, would you know approximately the ages and that sort of thing? I mean, just roughly.
14 to 18 right now.
Okay, so they're going to the Capitol
Yes,
and they're going to be visiting colleges.
yes.
Are they prepared to dress professionally as if you walk into Capitol building?
What we've done is we know that several of our kids have some issues, or our parents have some issues with funding that. So today we ordered sweaters that have Riviera Beach logos on it. We ordered the business attire, the shirts. Every kid has a pair of khakis, and we're gonna ask that they wear a certain shoe. So we're meeting with the parents to make sure all the parents can actually meet that. If not, then we will be going back to the county or to some of our private volunteers that have offered to offset some of those costs.
Oh, well, here you go, because I was definitely going to ask you if it's something that we can support, at least I can offer from my community benefits, because I hate to say it, when I see people in the Capitol, it's just a known fact. Everybody wears suits and everybody's in a necktie. And, I don't want to change anybody's life, but if you want to, if you want to be able to go in and meet a lawmaker, I think you need to at least dress the part. So I'm happy to bring back, wait, you guys are leaving on
The 23rd.
We can make the funds available and then kind of come back with regards to if there's any additional needs for, clothing or anything like that to the board.
Okay. Because, I think it's a great idea, but I want it to be an exceptional opportunity. That way, these kids stand out from every other kids that went to Washington, D.C. They're in the blazer, they're in the jacket, they have a necktie on.
Yeah.
So certainly, I'm willing to put up like $1,500 of my community benefits in support of the youth empowerment with this.
Thank you, Councilman.
Madam Chair.
And I think the councilman would just be an exceptional chaperone as well. I think we're still looking for a chaperone. But I know this is a busy time of year for him, but.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss it.
How many kids do you plan on taking?
I'm sorry?
How many kids do you plan on taking?
Up to 30.
Up to 30? Okay,
Yes.
and I'm with Councilman McCoy. Anything that you need as far as the kids don't have, I'm in great support of it.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Any other questions or
Well-
comments? Yes.
Madam Chair, if that's the case, I want to Later in the meeting, I'm gonna reserve an opportunity to do an add-on to do community benefits. That way we can go ahead and get it processed and she can go out and get the purchase started or do whatever. I don't wanna have to wait till it comes back to another meeting.
No, we would just authorize the funds immediately, and then
Okay.
we just come
All right.
back in the
Well,
next
good
meeting.
enough.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give 1,500.
All right.
Just let me know what you need. What he don't cover, I cover.
Okay.
He'll pick up the taxes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just want to say, Ms. Grimsley, congratulations. You're doing
Thank you.
an
Great
excellent
job.
job, and
Thank
thank you for taking such
Thank
good
you.
care of our kids. It's wonderful.
And I'd just like to add, sometimes when I'm outside of the city, I run into quite a few people that are very impressed with our youth empowerment program. And so that's just a testament to the amount of work that Ms. Grimsley is putting into the program in preparing our students and children in the community. So we'll appreciate everything that you do. And hopefully we could continue to grow that budget and we can service more kids.
I think we can be able to grow that budget. We'll figure it out.
All right, we will figure it out. If Mr. McCoy says we will, we will. All right.
Take it out of District 3 sector funds.
As long as it's not two. No, I don't have as much. All right, Ms. Anthony?
Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All right, that is the end of the items that were pulled. Any person who would like to speak on, this is for regular agenda items, which we're going to move into now. Any person who would like to speak on an agenda item, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers and give it to the staff prior to the item being presented to City Council for discussion. Members of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak on each regular agenda item. In no event will anyone be allowed to submit a comment card and speak on an agenda item after the resolution is read or item is considered. We don't have any unfinished business. No petition. Do we have anything, petitions and communications for
Yes,
filing?
yes, we do, Madam Chair. From the Office of the City Clerk, I want to advise the Chair and the City Council that on the agenda for the April 1st, 2020 City Council agenda, you will be selecting a chairperson that is in accordance with Article 2, Section 11 of the city's charter. As you all know, we did not have an election this year, and so your chairperson usually would be selected right after the election, but being that this is our off year and the chairperson came on in April of last year, the term ends, if you so desire, April of this year. So that will be on the April 1st agenda for the selection of a chair and a chair pro tem. Furthermore, from the Office of the City Clerk, the Office of the City Clerk is proud to announce Riviera Beach Moments, a collection of people, places, and events that develop Riviera Beach, Florida. This book was ranked #1 amongst 64 printed new releases on Amazon, as well as the Kindle version of this book, and it was ranked #2 on Amazon's new release list amongst 64 books. This compilation was authored by world-renowned author Deborah Hall McCullum. Just in case some may not know or are familiar with who she is and want an autograph, please visit the Office of the City Clerk located here at City Hall from 8:30 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. We want to congratulate Ms. McCullum on this adventure. I also want to announce that early voting will begin March 7th through March 15th. Wells will again be a location for our early voting, and the presidential primary election day will be March 17th. So to the residents and those that are watching us on YouTube or at home, please make sure that you cast your votes early here at Wells. Please also note that the law has changed wherein you are able to drop off your mail-in ballot at the early voting location. If you have any other questions or want to know additional information, please visit the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections website at www.pbcelections.org. Madam Chair, that concludes communication.
Just to go along with the announcement of the early voting site with Wells, could we just make sure, and this is not for you, it's probably more Mr. Evans, to make sure that the lighting, I think last year time may have changed and the lighting, there was no lights on for the first hour once it got dark. I think that was last year, one of those years that we had a problem with that. And then some of the lights on the inside of the gym, they were humming. They had a really bad humming sound, which caused a lot of complaints. So if we could just make sure the lighting is fine in there and on the outside, because it's pretty dark on the outside at that time. Awards and presentations, item number 13.
Investment presentation by the city's investment manager. Madam Chair.
Public comments, Madam Chair, 7:30.
I know we didn't get started here until late, but you all want to go ahead and do that before we do the awards and presentations? Because we did start late. We didn't start until about 6:30, so we can go ahead and do public comment now if you want, or we can just do the awards and presentations and then do it. Public comment? All right.
Madam Chair, if I may, I
Yes.
just really briefly want to introduce a new member of our staff team.
Okay.
I'd like to welcome and recognize Mrs. Elena Georgiev, who is the new internal auditor for the city of Riviera Beach. She's right here in the audience with us. She has a wealth of knowledge and a lot of skills and experience and a lot of credentials. She graduated from FAU. She holds multiple certifications, and I'll go through them briefly. She's a Charter Global Management Accountant, which is an international certification. She's a certified Information Systems Auditor. She is a certified internal auditor, and she's also a certified public accountant. So she has a lot of great experience, worked in the audit function for the city of West Palm and worked with other multiple government agencies. So she will be setting up an opportunity to meet with all the council members. She will be meeting with executive staff to hear what some of your concerns are and what are some of your issues. And then we're also going to be rolling out a fraud, waste, and abuse hotline and an opportunity to anonymously provide information to the internal audit function so she can work through her work plan. So we're excited to have her on board, and she has a great disposition and a lot of energy to help us make some sweeping changes. And then she speaks the same language that they speak at the the Inspector General's office as well, so
Good.
which will be a good asset for the organization.
Yes.
So welcome aboard.
Welcome. All right, public comment should be restricted to issues, matters, or topics pertinent to the city of Riviera Beach. Please be reminded that the city council has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which has been posted at the entrance of the council chambers in an effort to preserve order. If any of the rules are not adhered to, the council chair may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, and/or building if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Just keep in mind, we have a 3-minute timer. If you would just keep your eyes on that as well, and she'll call several people in order, so please be prepared.
Madam Chair, the acceptance of public comment cards for this particular section of the agenda is now closed. Fane Lozman, Reggie D., Cindy March.
Fane Lozman, Traderick McCoy, you let Sprague pull a fast one on you. We're not talking about the $5 million bond. We're talking about the $25 or $30 million bond for the marina itself. I have a copy right here of Newcomb's bequest, the Newcomb building named after Newcomb, who donated the land to the marina in 1913. And in his bequest, as part of the condition, he said no individual firm or corporation should ever have a monopoly on the use. What they've done is now you have to have a 32-foot boat to go in their minimum length. That was never the requirement before the redevelopment. So Loggerhead is coming in, he's making it an elite marina that's been on the backs of the taxpayers. When I was at the Riviera Beach Marina, we had a 20-foot boat over there. We had a 25-foot boat. There's $20-some-odd million of taxpayers' money is going into making an elite marina for rich guys. That's what we were trying to fight. These are public funds, whether it's from the county or from the taxpayers here, and they're putting a 32-foot limit on it. Now you just heard what those slips are for. I like to put a 25-foot boat in a boat lift. No, those are for 45 or 50-foot boats. Okay, if they want to go build an elite marina for multi-million-dollar boats, let them do it. But that's not what was in Newcomb's bequest in 1913. That wasn't what was presented to the fine for all these grants. I am so angry about what's happened here. I talked to the head of state lands years ago. There's supposed to be no boats for sale in any of those slips, and Loggerhead is letting a private company park boats in there, and they're selling them like a used car lot. Let's call it a used boat lot. Okay? This marina is on a deed with this, and I had lunch with Governor Bush, I think 10 years ago. We talked about it. He said if he was governor, he would revoke the deed from the Riviera Beach Marina because the deed comes from the state for free. Okay, we don't pay anything, but yet we're doing activities on the deed, and have somebody go pull it. Tell the city manager, I want to see the deed from the state of Florida, Ms. Lanier, and you'll see you can't discriminate against anybody using it, but what they're doing, they're economically discriminating against people with boats under 32 feet. Who can use those boat slips? You know, it takes somebody like me who spent years studying this, but the more I see it, the more upset I'm getting that this marina is violative of Newcomb's bequest. It's violative of the deed that the state of Florida did not collect any submerged land rent. And it's becoming Loggerhead's little marina for the rich guys, but the taxpayers who have smaller boats, they cannot participate in its use. I have a real problem with it. I'll be on the phone with state lands in the immediate future. I'll tell them they still are violating Scott Williams' letter regarding using it as a used parking lot. Loggerhead is out of control, and somebody ought to take the initiative to do something about it.
Reggie D., Cindy March, Lloyd Brown.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Council members, my name is Reggie D., founder of the Reggie D. Foundation, radio broadcast for Hubbard Radio X1023, and I'm here to hopefully get support for the safety of our kids that are playing basketball and stuff like that on a concrete outdoor premises or properties on within the schools and blacktop areas. I'm gonna leave some brochures here with some solutions of what I think we should do to improve the safety of our kids, which I think instead of playing on concrete, there's a certain material that I passed to the mayor that's waterproof. You can absorb if you fall and want to braise your skin, stuff like that. And if it's a piece that needs to be replaced, they're well put together that goes over the concrete in small sections. And if possible, you could take a look at that and help me pass on that information through the Park and Recreations, you know, because I think safety's first with our kids. And plus with the Reggie D. Foundation, I walked across the country for a great cause for unity. And with that, I wanted to lead by example. And learning from that situation, I think what's important is our kids and our youth. So what I did was created a Reggie D. Foundation to where I can start creating events, academically, entertaining, and athletic, to have our kids to come back outside and have some fun in the name of unity. So I created an anti-bullying program. I did it at Inlet Grove. I took 30 kids on Brightline, took them to Wynwood. It was amazing to see the fact that these kids had never really gone out their community. But with that being said, I wanted to expand it a little bit more, and that's why I created a 501c3 to hopefully get some funding so I can create these events to be bigger for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy March, Lloyd Brown, Bonnie Larson.
Good evening, I'm Cindy March. I just want to let you all know when I come through these doors, I don't walk in fear, I walk by faith. And the reason why I'm saying this, and I'm going to elaborate on this, and I want to put it out there for public records. I have much respect for anybody, especially the police officers that serve us 24 hours a day. But I was approached again by Assistant Chief Rozier about me, you know, making outbursts and stuff. The last meeting I was to, I didn't make no outbursts. Someone asked me stay to the meeting, And I told him, no, I don't stay to the meeting once I speak. Because number one, I'm not over here for the foolishness, the riffraff, the disrespect. Now, the truth hurt. Now, if you feel like you can't handle what I say out my mouth, and I'm not always right as a human being, but I'm going to call a spade a spade. And just like I told him, and I tell anybody in here, I respect anybody in uniform. So therefore, I don't feel intimidated when I don't disrespect no one. Like I said, you might not like what I said in the book you were speaking about. I am so proud because my niece Lady was in that book as well as the first black bullying official. So I feel like you all should have really embraced her because she's one of you all. And she's in that, she done made history, regardless whether you like her personal fidelis or what. She did a phenomenal job over here financially. And getting back with the children, I have much respect for kids because I don't have any, but I have 14 sisters and 6 brothers, and I help raise all of my nieces and nephews. So whatever you're doing for the kids is fine. But a lot of this stuff you all talking about, it was already in place. But when Lynn Hubbard was trying to put it in place, she was up on an audit. She was accused of stealing money. You all didn't even give her props. And she did a lot for the city, whether we like the way things come out of her mouth or not. She was a good person, okay? And I have anger in me because I'm sick of coming over here and then the police officer approaching me like I'm the bad person. I can speak to anybody and smile with you and keep going. I'm not going to waste a days of work because every time it's a meeting, I ask, can you please take me off the schedule? Because I'm a concerned citizen. I don't mind missing money, but I'm not going to miss money to get no free handcuffs put on me because I can't keep my mouth shut or I got to disrespect somebody. So I'm asking you, the manager, if you can step to whoever you need to step to, or if you need to meet with me personally, I'll meet with you personally, because that's not what I'm over here for. And y'all can find money for everything, and I know it's a gag order, but y'all find money for these children that don't been displaced out of Stony Brook. Y'all do something like that because y'all gave the leeway. Y'all voted for them to go to the bank and get the money, to get this money to redevelopment, and they didn't redevelopment since November. Their deadline was November. I had someone call me and asked me for an interview. I'm not up here for fame and fashion and to be on social media. I'm not up here because somebody want to fly in and do an interview with me.
Lloyd Brown, Bonnie Larson, Ernestine Gordon.
I think somebody left
Good evening.
something up there, I don't know.
You could just leave it right there. Thank you.
Don't take my minute since I was telling you about that.
Go ahead.
Anyway, I'm up here to be famous. I don't care, really. And you know, one thing I want to say is, you know, I'm not going to put everything on the council because, you know, it's like I believe in black nationalism. I usually listen to Malcolm X when he talk about it. And what he's saying is like, okay, an individual's not going to come to your house and tell you how to run your house and how to do things in your house. And then the individual will get people to come to your house that they think, you know, can persuade you. Those times are over. You know, when somebody can come in your neighborhood and tell you what you got to do and how you should do it, those days should be long gone. And then when somebody can take and put somebody in, like a few people up here that manipulate you, you know, they don't have the benefit, your benefits of the community in mind. And those people, I mean, at times should be over too. And I'm talking about some of you council members up here, because your time is going to be over. And I mean, honestly, it's not all on you. I mean, you got people that are run to spend their money in somebody else's neighborhood. When you spend your money out of your neighborhood becomes a slum. It becomes low down. Then you want to say, oh man, we need housing and all that. Well, you spending your money out of your neighborhood. I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the people out there, because I see them up to these stores and everywhere else. So it's not all that the council is doing is wrong. It's you people in the churches, everybody. If you spend your money out of your community, you can't say a damn thing about how your community is failing, because that doesn't make sense. You're going to go to the next person and give your money to them, and he's going to take that bag full of money. He's going to take it right to his community. His community is going to be richer, and yours is going to get poorer. And like I say, then you're going to complain about the housing in your neighborhood. And then another thing, too. As far as I see, don't think that I got anything against any other group of people, but I'm for my own, because for one thing, I ride through the neighborhood. I rode through 8th Street, and I see that they over there putting up palm trees, and I'm saying there's nobody in Riviera Beach that I know doing this, right on Martin Luther King. And then, okay, Lozman, you was talking about the dry dock. They got a dry dock right over on 15th and Obama. If you go over there, you'll see 3 and 4 boats laying there. Now, anybody out there that's being bothered by the code enforcement people, tell them to go over there and clear that out first. And then, another thing too, while I got 25 minutes, I want to give a shout out to a black business, Fleming's. It's like carpet cleaning. I told them I'll do that for them because the city doesn't recognize any black individual with businesses. You let everybody else come in here and you be talking about minority. Like I said, minority could be 1 cat, 10 dogs. The 1 cat is a minority, but that doesn't mean that he's going to get everything done. But thank you.
Thank you.
Bonnie Larson, Ernestine Gordon, Amon Israel.
Bonnie Larson, I have a lot of comments on item number 17, but I'm going to throw some of them into the public comments because I just have too many. Some questions first. On Avenue F and Blue Heron, there's a yellow sign on that property. Now, that was the property that was designated to be a little shopping center with Tony Subs, et cetera. Now there's that big yellow sign on it. So have we changed our minds about that, or what's going on with that property? Community values survey, this is great. Our city manager wants to hear from us. And we've got a lot of comments, a lot of things going on in our neighborhood and that we think could improve the city. This is what this is for. This is not a gripe sheet. This is how can we make our city better. So please participate in this. I'm going to. Also, I've seen some campaign signs up now for August. What did we finally decide about campaign signs, where people can put them and how long they can be there? August is 6 months from now. I'm not sure I want to see those signs for 6 months. So what did we finally decide about where people could put signs and for how long when they have to take them down? Do they pay for it? What did we decide about that? Just have so many things here. Okay, the other thing was I was really upset last week because we were talking about hiring a police chief, and I was very, very upset about it because there was some backlash about Mr. Evans needing more money to hire a good police chief. Now, yourself, let's say you go out to buy a car and you get sticker shock because you're not sure how much that car is going to be until you start looking around. Well, it's the same thing when you start interviewing people. Would you know off the top of your head how much a police chief gets? Would you know that? Would you know what their responsibilities are? We were promised transparency, and we were promised educated, experienced people to be on the salary of Riviera Beach. Every time you hear about Riviera Beach, it's we have more employees in the city than any other city does. And I was really upset about that because we've lost. The IT department didn't put in a security system for us. Look what that cost us. The building inspector wasn't licensed. Look what happened there. The company sued us. The employee sued us. Monroe Heights, that's got to be redone. That's a couple $1 million every time. All those things have cost us a lot of money, and we were quibbling over $25,000. We've got to trust our city manager. He has more degrees than anyone I know. He's well qualified to interview for people. And like I said, you really don't know until you get out there and look. And we want the best. The city, residents of the city, we want the best. We don't want someone who comes to us for cheap. So please let him do his job. Please don't quibble with him over a few dollars. 10%, every department head, 10% gets automatically. He's a city manager. He should have much more than that. So let's not quibble about those prices. Thank you.
Ernestine Gordon, Amon Israel, Reverend Burrs.
My name is Ernestine Gordon.
Good evening.
Good afternoon, everyone up there. I'm coming talking about the traffic. When the school is out on Blue Heron and the kids are getting out for school, I think one of y'all councilors, somebody should come out and watch. They need a police out there. The speed is 20. Those people not doing 20. They're doing 20, 35, and 40. They don't even look at that sign. And the patrol ladies be out there, and it look like they don't even give them much respect. And I talked to the patrol lady, and she said, I have talked to the police department. I can't get no help here. And I walk just about every other day. That's my walk. I walk up in that area. And I just stand out there and watch the traffic. That's I-95 second out there. That's I-95. Those people go so fast. And I was walking down by the, close down to Congress there, before down there. And three little young boys ran across the street. And the other one almost like to fell, but by the other two hold him up, and they went on across the street. Those cars was going fast. If those kids would have fell down, those cars would have hit them. Please get a policeman out there. Because I walk out and I see it. It's dangerous out there for those ladies. Okay? And the next thing I want to talk about is my stoves. I'd like to have some information tonight on the stoves, whether you're going to close, whether you're going to change the hours on those stoves, those 3 stoves. Please, I'd like to have the information, because a lot of the people out there in TV land are waiting for that information, because I didn't have anything to tell a lot of them. So let me know tonight, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Amon Israel, Reverend Burrs, Doretta Polk.
Good evening,
Good
Council
evening.
Chair, City Manager, Amon Yisrael, Riviera Beach, Florida. This Saturday at Wells Recreation, there's going to be a firefighters and paramedic orientation. This is an orientation that our community is not aware of, or we're not familiar with the firefighters and paramedic industry. There are plenty jobs surround firefighters and paramedics that our community need to be aware of. Our fire department, Riviera Beach Finest, in conjunction with the Firefighters Association of South Florida and Builders of the Highway, is bringing this together. But this is some education our community need to know about. There's also the Professional Firefighters Association is going to make sure that the youth are trained to pass the examinations that they need to pass to be firefighters and paramedics. But it's going to be this Saturday at Wells Recreation from 10 to 12. They're definitely asking for 11th and 12th graders, but there are some people interested in their 20s and 30s, but anybody can come. But it's an industry that we need to be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reverend Burrs, Doretta Polk, J.B. Dixon.
Council,
Good evening.
Mayor, City Manager, I'm here again to we thank you all for the information they sent that you will be attending the meeting that we're having on Saturday at the park in the Long Pine Homeowners Association at 12 noon. And it's going to be, if you haven't been there, just come in, keep going around on the west end of the development. And we'd like for you all to come out and see what this developer is offering, which is, we are not so sure concerning it. And we like for the city manager, and because this development will affect the entire city, and not just Long Pine Estate, and just like the Marina, as I said, and the Ocean Mall, affects the whole city. So we need people to come out and look at it and see what they're offering, and help us make a good decision what is be best for this, not just for our community, but for the entire city. So we need people like you all, and the city manager, the building department, recreation and parks, and every department within the city, because it's going to affect all those. As a matter of fact, we're going to have the county going to be represented there. Bernard going to be there, and state, somebody from Mr. Powers' department going to be there. So we need you all to come out and get a first-hand view, seeing what it looked like. We don't want to be behind this. We want to be ahead of it. That makes sure that the city headed in the right direction when it comes to selling that golf course. And there's a lot of ifs and questions concerning it. Come out and get it firsthand. I could sit here and tell you a whole lot of things, but better to see it for yourself. and you could get with your departments and make a final decision, a better decision, that we should let it go or not get involved with it, whatever the case might be. Because some months ago, in our meeting, a gentleman said to us that it may be in the past that this was a solution or ordinance in the state that govern these golf courses, that what they can and cannot do. We don't know. That's how we need much legal department to come out and investigate to help us see what this company is about. The company name is D.R. Horton, if I'm correctly, and I asked a question that they was never answered. Have you ever did a development of this nature before? They only said to me, well, we work with the city and building a couple of houses. I could build a house, which I have built a house in the city, because I built my house. So that don't qualify them to do a development of that nature. So we're asking that the council come out and look at it, help us look through this, and bring Mr. Botel, you could bring some people from the island to help, because they're going to affect the entire city. Whether you all know it or not, this place where the land that you're sitting on right now, maybe you all don't know that, this used to be a driving range in the city.
Thank
when
you.
they built this department here, that's when they eliminated. So
Thank you, Reverend Burst.
it's good to, if you all come out and be with us on that day. That's the 22nd
Thank
at
you.
12 noon. God bless you.
Doretta Polk, J.B. Dixon, Mary Brown.
Good evening.
Good
My name is
evening.
Doretta Polk. I'm a resident of Riviera Beach, and I failed to acknowledge one thing that I want to say when I was up here prior. I'm so sorry, Dr. Botel, of your loss of your husband. And I was at home the last council meeting and sitting listening to the meeting, and that was what was said. You just don't cross those lines. I'm a widow myself, and you don't do that when people are grieving. We as a city need to have more sympathy, empathy for each other, and love each other. And I really am sorry to have heard that comment made to you, in reference to your husband. And another thing that I want to talk about, also Mr. McCoy and Councilman McCoy and Mayor Felder, thank you for your donation to the Youth Empowerment Children, because a lot of those children don't have the apparel that they really probably should have going on this prestigious trip. And it's not their fault, and sometimes it's not even the parents' fault. Sometimes there's situations, which I don't know, but anyway, thank you. Thank you for giving the finances. Also, I want to thank the Parks and Recreation. I can't say enough about Mr. Blankenship, Miss Gwen Oates, Miss Franks. We have a wonderful time at all, and also Mr. Councilman Lawson, he gave, for the senior citizens, we have a wonderful time, events that they put on for the seniors. And the playlist that, hats off to Mr. Walter Stevens, hats off to him. He has an awesome playlist. We enjoy it. And I thank you all for everything that you all do for us. And that Mr. Kerr over there, Fire Chief, he got some moves himself. A marvelous time. And thank you all for all what you all do in the city of Riviera Beach. Another thing, real quick, there was a shooting on 20th Street. And, it's very sad that families relate to each other in such violence. And we just have to keep up in prayer concerning that, because it's a terrible thing, because that little quaint little right in there, it's really a quiet little community. And I live on 20th Street. And I was just devastated to hear that. St. Francis had an event, a huge event, Black History event there, and we have a 3-story senior citizen building. Bullets don't know anyone's name. And another thing, even when the holidays, we got to stop all this shooting for New Year's and 4th of July. We need to stop this shooting.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
All righty.
J.B. Dixon, Mary Brown.
Good evening,
Good
J.B.
evening.
Dixon, Singer Island and Riviera Beach. I would like to address the remarks that were made about the marina. I don't know how many of you at the dais are boaters or have been boaters. I was a boater for 25 years. I had several boats, one in a row, not all at the same time. And I know a little bit about marinas. Your marina, this marina, if I'm not mistaken, if you will look into the cost of your slips, and as well as the cost of transient docking at your marina, is less than any of the private marinas or the yacht clubs, which is typical for a city marina, as it should be. When somebody buys a boat, they take into account, of course, what is necessary. Can you afford the boat? Can you afford to buy it? Can you afford to maintain it? Can you afford the gas to go out in it if it's a power boat? And where are you going to keep it? There is nothing wrong with a marina, especially with your chances, your plans to develop that marina with hotels and housing and everything else, with making room for super yachts. You should be happy that there would be room for those, because those are people who are going to spend a lot of money. There are also, as they were talking, I'm sure I know if you know the difference between a slip, which is in between two docks, and coming alongside, what's called alongside a dock. There appears to me to be lots and lots of room for 25-foot boats. Many people who buy 25-foot boats, by the way, trailer those boats. They don't want to pay to have the boat in the water, and in salt water, they don't want the barnacles on it. So I really fail to see how this is a boat for multimillionaires. I mean, a marina for multimillionaires. And I think that before you accept those remarks, you need to take a look at your marina, compare it to other marinas and yacht clubs, and talk to some boaters, because there appears to be nothing wrong at all with the plans as I see them. I'd also like to very briefly add my compliments to Ms. Grimsley. And as you noticed, she had already thought of the dress code for the young people who are going on this trip. I know her well enough, I think, to know that she will also tell them how to behave, how to shake hands, how to look people in the eye, and how to act. She is an excellent steward of money that I have observed, much better so than the many, many hundreds of thousands of dollars that we wasted on other efforts. I think she's to be commended and given more money, if anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Brown.
Miss Mary Brown, Riviera Beach.
Good evening.
I would like to say to the residents, you've heard the clerk speak about your voting rights and your status of voting. I am encouraging you. You are at a standpoint moment here in history. It is up to each individual to do their part, and that is to vote. She expressed to you on March the 7th through the 15th, you would have a chance to come out and vote. It is critical. Don't sit back and say that your vote doesn't count, because your vote, every vote counts now. And the primary election, am I correct? It's on March the 17th. It's critical. Acting Chief Rozier, thank you for your service. Sometimes we have to grow. Not saying that you have done a bad job, but we are in critical moments in this city here. It is a safety problem all over this city. To the new chief that is elected, I assume that is Chief Osgood. I say, as a resident, as long with the other residents, we will welcome you aboard. We will welcome that ingenuity that you will bring. I always say, see, Miss Gordon, it is about 20 of us. Miss Gordon walks. Miss Bram and others, we drive. Miss Bram have a truck. I'm a widow, but I still wear my rings. And we do these neighborhoods. So we are lined it up here for good government and how we want this city to move forward. Because if not, we will not procrastinate. See, this is what Ms. Bram do besides coming in the chambers too. FDOT. Residents, you have called me. I have talked with FDOT. Here's your papers here, because you know Ms. Bram don't talk off the top of her head. This is the progress report of FDOT. We would like for you as a board and city manager to stay on top of this. Some state representatives told me that they would do everything that they can. See, we only have two main wayfarers, Blue Heron or MLK. So you come off I-95 and you're going to come down MLK. So we need that beautified. We also would like, other than palm trees there, we need to do a better job of facing our entryways with beautification of other shrubberies, like crones and all of those things of that nature there. We will stand out. It is 4 things here. Impeccable with your words. Anything personal. Don't make assumption. Always do your best.
Thank you, Ms.
Those are the
Brown.
4 agreements that you as a board should bring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes.
All right. Mr. Evans, do you have any answers to any of those questions?
Madam Chair, in regards to the, I believe there was an item 17 that it was referenced, but the speaker will make comments with regards to that. The project on Avenue F and Blue Heron, I believe that's a project that the CRA is bringing forward for discussions with planning and zoning, and then ultimately would come back before the CRA. The election signage, we have noticed that there is some election signage that has come over to our community from the city of West Palm, and so code enforcement has been informed accordingly. And I think there's some things that we have the ability to effectively remove signage in the event that, you know, we have some stipulations in there in the code, but I would have to defer to development services staff on specific signage. But we'll look into that, and if it's something that we can pull the signage, or if they're in the inappropriate place, we can go ahead and address that, but also realize that there are certain things that we cannot regulate, and signage is one of the things that is a very touchy situation, because you have First Amendment implications associated with that, and some cities had to go and modify some of their codes as it relates to signage and what you put on signage and those types of things to be compliant with what the law says. So we'll go ahead and address that accordingly. With regards to the comments that Ms. Gordon made about traffic and concerns in our school zones, I will ask that law enforcement deploy the appropriate resources intermittently to do some traffic enforcement, and to do it in a form and a fashion that folks don't know the days that we'll be out there, so we can start doing some targeting enforcement as it relates to the issue that was expressed. Concerning the convenience stores and the closing of those stores, we're looking at bringing forward an ordinance that talks about chronic nuisance problems in the community, and that will be discussed at one of the board meetings here in March. If the board moves forward with the chronic nuisance program, we would have more quote-unquote teeth as it relates to the policy to be able to address loitering and some of the issues that we're starting to see. The concern that, or the issues that we have with regards to actually closing those facilities, if those facilities have gone through the appropriate permitting process and they were granted the authorization to be operational for 24 hours or till the early hours of the morning, there's really limited things we can do to effectively go ahead and close those operations. But we do have some recommendations that we're looking to move forward on the chronic nuisance side that will give us the ability to address some of the problematic issues that we have in the community. The other side of it is we're looking at taking a approach to look to acquire some of those parcels that are those chronic nuisance properties throughout the city. So invariably, we may try to buy those properties and demo the structure and then look to either add it to our affordable housing inventory or look to expand some of the city park network that we have. So we're looking at anything that we can do within our existing rules, but also looking to make some modifications to ordinances to address that. With regards to the community meeting that was discussed at noon, that is a meeting that administration will be present at. I do want to inform the board as well as staff, there will not be staff participation in the meeting yet because at this particular moment, we haven't received any documentation notification about what the proposed plans are. So invariably, we don't want to insert ourselves until we have documentation that effectively this is what the developer is going to do with the particular parcel. Now, we will be there as far as administration just to be able to hear the presentation as to what's going on, and then we can draft a memorandum to the board and report back accordingly. But we have not received anything through the Development Services Department since the last conversation I had with Acting Director Gagnon. So administration will report back accordingly on the outcome of that particular meeting. But we didn't want to get all staff resources there, and then it ends up becoming our meeting to address the comments that are being communicated from the developer. We'll let the developer make their presentation. We will take notes and then report back accordingly.
All right. Awards and presentations, item number 13.
Investment presentation by the city's investment manager. Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, Mr. Evans.
Madam Chair, if I can have Mr. Randy Sherman, Director of Finance and Administrative Services, present this item.
Good evening, Randy
Good
Sherman.
evening.
Earlier this evening, we discussed the investment policy. Part of that investment policy, one, requires us to have an investment manager, and two, to report back to the board. So this evening, we have from PFM Asset Management, Richard Pengali, who will make a brief presentation. And we'll get that going.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. As Mr. Sherman said, my name is Richard Pengelly. I'm with PFM Asset Management, and we are the investment manager for the city's operating reserve funds. Just to give you a high-level overview of performance over the past calendar year, the city's portfolio did well relative to the benchmark and also relative to the past few years. Since the credit crisis, generally interest rates have been very low. As a result, yields for the high-quality types of investments that the city invests in have also been very low. Going back to 2015, the Federal Reserve started raising short-term interest rates, which has a direct impact on the types of investments and the yields that are available for the city's type of portfolio. So for calendar year 2019, the portfolio return was 3.87%. It outperformed the benchmark, which is the 1 to 3 year Treasury index, which was 3.55%. So very good relative performance compared to the benchmark. Since only investment folks think in yields, if we convert that to a dollar number, that equates to $1.6 million for the year. Again, if you look back over the past couple of years, a good result. The portfolio continues to be managed in compliance with the city's investment policy, meeting all of the requirements in that policy, and we'll sort of show you that in a second here. As a general matter, the city, like local governments throughout Florida, and as statutory required, only invest in very high quality investments that you have adopted in your investment policy. The performance in the portfolio benefited from changes that the Federal Reserve made over the course of the year, which I'll show in a second here, that contributed to increasing the value of the investments that you hold. However, because yields are now lower, as we rebalance and reinvest maturities in the portfolio, looking forward, we would expect that earnings are going to be a little bit lower than we saw in the past year. So, looking at a snapshot of the portfolio, portfolio continues to be very well diversified. Most of your investments, the majority of the portfolio is in U.S. government securities, particularly U.S. Treasury securities, which are the most liquid, highest rated investments. Again, in line with your investment objectives of safety and liquidity first, and then we consider yield. Other instruments, high-quality instruments are in the portfolio, like corporate securities and agency securities, which help to diversify the portfolio as well as add some yield prudently. The credit rating is a high credit rating. The average credit quality is AA, which reflects the fact that it's mostly in U.S. government securities. Here we only show ratings from Standard & Poor's, and Standard & Poor's rates the U.S. government AA. So that translates into the average rating of your portfolio. The portfolio is also diversified across the yield curve, meaning that there are a variety of maturities. We don't just have only 5-year investments. We don't, or just 6-month investments. So it gives you exposure to different parts of the short-term yield curve. So highly diversified and highly liquid portfolio. Next page 3, just shows the yield and earnings on the portfolio per quarter, going back to when we took over management of the portfolio in 2018. Generally, you've benefited from the Fed raising interest rates, as I mentioned, and then in 2019, they started bringing them back down. So over time, we're going to see the yield drift down on the portfolio. But as of now, the portfolio is generating somewhere in the $300,000 to $400,000 range per quarter. Next slide, page 5, is just a report showing or demonstrating that the portfolio is in compliance with the policy. Each sector that you're allowed to invest in also has an allocation limit. This helps to make sure that we as managers keep the portfolio diversified, and those limits are based on kind of the relative size or other characteristics of those markets. And then last is sort of a list showing what the individual holdings are and also demonstrating that they're in compliance with the policy. So I'll pause there for questions.
All right, questions or comments? None at this time? Was that the end of your?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. All right. Item number 14.
Fire Chief's presentation on community resiliency. Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, Mr. Evans.
Madam Chair and members of the board, I will ask that Interim Fire Chief John Curd make this presentation as a result of a conversation that occurred on the dais with regards to community resiliency. I believe it was the Vice Chair that asked for this information, and so the Interim Fire Chief has done some research, and we'd like to bring forward that here for the board to hear what's going on the county-wide level on resiliency and certain things as it relates to the city of Riviera Beach and how we're preparing for some things that will be, in essence, outside of our control, but at least we'll be better prepared for those particular circumstances. So, Chief Curd?
Yes, give me 1 second. Mr. Evans, please. Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Mr. Evans, Mayor. This is going to be a very high-level conversation about resiliency. Per the direction of Mr. Evans, based on some comments made at one of the last council meetings, there were some concepts and some statements that were made about resiliency. What's the city's resiliency? So I went to work, and that's a very big word. That's not as simple as what it may sound. So what has been determined right now is resiliency is actually very nebulous right now. There is no standard by the federal government. There is no standard amongst municipalities on how you measure or rate resiliency. Some of the assessment tools that are available use a numerical scale. Others use a very resilient, slightly resilient, not resilient. So there's gonna have to be some customization of what it is we want to look at in regards to resiliency, and then how do we want to rate it and score it. I've done some work with Palm Beach County's Office of Resiliency. They're working on some standardized approaches with Monroe, Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County, utilizing some standard terminology and some standard metrics to determine what is resiliency, so we can compare to our neighboring municipalities. But right now, their main focus is sea level rise. When you talk about resiliency to anybody in the state of Florida or on a coastline, sea rise seems to be the #1 concern. What I did find was, and I'm not going to bore you with the definitions, but right now FEMA has developed a draft concept paper to standardize the process nationally. What they've done is they've taken the National Preparedness Goals 10 core competencies, which are housing, health services, economic recovery, infrastructure. I don't need to read the bullets to you, but basically those are the 10 main National Preparedness Goal capabilities. With that, they then take those 10 core capabilities and they look at 28 different organizational indicators. So this is where, when we really look at resiliency, it's not a department, it's not a one person, it's a system. Now, whether or not the city of Riviera Beach decides to create a resiliency office, hire a resiliency lead coordinator, and then use a committee amongst different departments to form that committee and guide resiliency, will be up to city administration. Just to give you some just context to what resiliency is, you look at indicator 1, housing conditions, when they talk about core capabilities of housing. How many people live within each resident based on how many rooms are in that residency? Housing affordability is the mortgage and all utilities greater than 30% of the family's income. So all of these get scores and ratings. To your question, Ms. Botel, I know you did reference, there was some conversation about the gas stations. Great question. But that's something that's dealt with in codes and ordinances. You build in the codes and ordinances that you want to see, so that would fall under, you know, your building department, planning and zoning. Everybody has a little bit of stake in the game. We talk about health. How many doctors do we have in Riviera Beach per capita? I can tell you it's not many when I looked it up. That affects resiliency. The availability to mental health services. I know there's a lot of work being done in the city to mental health services. All of these things factor in. Let me tell you what we are doing is currently right now, with approval from Mr. Evans, he's given me the authorization to look at the city's comprehensive emergency management plan. And in the backup documentation, I'd really like you to take an opportunity when you get a chance to look at a review that was done of the city's comprehensive emergency management plan, and the direction within that plan is going to give us the foundation to then look at resiliency. Council, we've been talking about resiliency all night. I heard it with the water department earlier today. I heard it with the Marina. They now have the docks that rise with, all of those things are considered resiliency. But with the comprehensive emergency management plan, there's a couple of components that are very important that are going to lay the foundation for us to move forward. The first is going to be what's called a THIRA. And now understand, our comprehensive emergency management plan is only an annex to Palm Beach County's. So we work under Palm Beach County's emergency plan, but we do have one within our city. So the first thing we need to do is we need to have a THIRA performed, a threat hazard identification risk assessment. What are we susceptible to? Here's a perfect example. When you look at community resiliency, and I'm gonna throw one out there that's way out there, but it's been a month of me researching this. How susceptible is our community to invasive species of insects? Doesn't sound like a big deal, but there's a termite that came in through, allegedly, the Port of Palm Beach called their Formosa termite. Subterranean, lives underground. So basically, tenting your home does nothing. You have to have a pest control company come out, bore holes that we've done at some of our fire stations and other facilities to kill this termite. Riviera Beach may not be very resilient. How many of our homeowners can afford to call a pest control company? And however, the town of Palm Beach, very resilient. Their homeowners can afford to call a pest control company. So resiliency is going to be big. Once we do a threat hazard identification risk assessment, we've talked with Mr. Evans about developing a continuity of operations plan and also a continuity of government plan. I think once that's completed, we'll then be able to move towards and answering some of those questions of how resilient are we? Any questions, comments, concerns?
Any questions, comments?
Just to say thank you very much for taking this deep dive into resiliency and what it means for us. And I appreciate the fact that you're going to continue to look into it and continue to try to make our community more resilient as we go forward. Appreciate
Absolutely. Our goal right now is to make sure we as a government are resilient. We can't help the community unless we can prepare for, respond to, and recover from. We don't have Cat 5 buildings in Riviera Beach. That's a problem. We've looked at the new fire station 88 going in. 158-mile-an-hour winds is what it's rated for because that's what's code. We have a new leader on the board. Last year, we saw 225-mile-an-hour winds. So when you talk about resiliency, do we build those stations a little bit stronger? Do we? But all of that comes with taking a deeper dive into what is resiliency.
Mr. Lawson, did you have a question, comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Anyone else? Thank you so much for that presentation. Item number 15, public hearing.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving an application from SROA Capital LLC, requesting site plan amendment approval to expand the existing self-storage use by constructing an additional 36,310 square feet of new building area, as well as providing building facade and landscape improvements at 1177 West Blue Heron Boulevard, comprised of approximately 8.58 acres of land identified by parcel control number 5643422956000010, providing for conditions of approval and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, we do have public comments cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
So move.
Second.
All right, Mr. Evans.
Madam Chair and members of the board, if I can have Acting Director of Development Service, Mr. Jeff Gagnon, present this item.
Good
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council. Jeff Gagnon, Acting Director of Development Services. As read into the record, you have a resolution for consideration before you for a site plan approval to expand an existing use within the city. Our applicant is SROA Capital, which is Storage Rentals of America, and their agent is Schmidt-Nichols. They're looking to expand the existing facility by approximately 36,000 square feet, and the location address is 1177 West Blue Heron Boulevard. The site itself is approximately 8.5 acres, and there are existing industrial uses surrounding. Blue Heron is directly to the north, as shown before you on the aerial image provided. This view is a little bit closer, and you can see the site. Again, Blue Heron is directly north, running east and west. So Storage Rentals of America had acquired this property in October of 2018. and they're looking to expand. At this point in time, this expansion is for not only additional self-storage space, but also to provide a new building facade along the frontage on Blue Heron, as well as improvements to the landscape package to bring the site up to today's current landscape codes. One talking point that had come up at a staff level in between resident conversations had to do with the previous history of the site. So we want to take time and delve down into this just to make the city council aware that historically this site was the home of a company that unfortunately had been associated with dumping chemicals down the drain. So that company was called Solitron Devices. So this was back in the early 60s. That unfortunate dumping has really caused ongoing remediation effort. The EPA is well versed in the issue and has documented the problem. Currently on site, there is a subsurface groundwater scrubbing facility where water is being pumped from underground water sources, and then it's being injected down. Clean water is being injected back down, and that process has been going on for some numbers of years, and unfortunately that will continue into the future. The current property owner was well aware of this. They did a phase 1 environmental study prior to purchasing the property. The environmental study was done in July of 2018. They of course want to keep working with EPA and ensure that that process continues to scrub that groundwater of any contaminants. The only other comment that came up in that phase 1 environmental assessment just really had to do with the age of the building. It was built in 1959, so there is a chance that there were materials used during that construction that could have asbestos, or lead paint could also be used. So their best management practices recommended by the consultant were to establish an operations and maintenance program through the redevelopment process. We did discuss this item briefly at our last city council meeting on the 5th. There is another agenda item, the ordinance on second reading, that is associated with a code amendment that will create a definition for self-storage within the city. It will also create a parking ratio associated with this use. So that's our next item on the agenda, which is 19, I believe. Excuse me, 16? 16. So that item would have to be approved on second reading in order for the site plan approval to proceed. For the record, the site plan has been attached as backup Exhibit A. Shown before you in yellow is the existing site, and the green portion shown here is the proposed expansion area. And for the record, the landscape plan has been provided and attached as Exhibit B. We briefly touched upon this last meeting, but really want to focus on the new landscape package that's being provided along the Blue Heron corridor, really trying to bolster that landscape buffer and provide a true upgrade to the site. This is the architectural rendering of the building elevation improvements. So this is the view from Blue Heron Boulevard. And our next slide shows the existing conditions on the bottom of the screen and the proposed architectural improvements on the north side. So they're looking to modernize the building. It's going to be in compliance with our architectural standards from a city standpoint, and we think it's going to give a new, fresh facelift to this building along the Blue Heron corridor. Just for the record, the staff analysis had resulted in successfully satisfying all of the requirements as far as the compatibility with the comp plan, levels of service, landscaping, and parking and traffic. Our Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval to City Council on January 9th, and City staff is also recommending that the City Council consider approval. The first 3 conditions are boilerplate conditions. 4, 5, and 6 are also boilerplate conditions. Condition number 7, the applicant shall consult with Riviera Beach Police Department in order to incorporate one or more internet protocol cameras within their site design for RBPD use. This is a newer condition of approval, but we're looking to make this a boilerplate condition to ensure that our police camera systems are working as well as possible, and also gaining access to active sites throughout the city. Condition 8 is that the concurrently processed ordinance associated with creating an off-street parking ratio for self-storage uses must be approved and adopted prior to the site plan approval becoming effective. And number 9, we believe the applicant has already provided this information, but just for belt and suspender, prior to approval of city building permit, the applicant shall provide a drainage report sufficient to demonstrate compliance with City and South Florida Water Management District regulations, specifically demonstrating compliance with City Comp Plan Infrastructure Element Policy 1.5.3. So the applicant is present tonight, as well as their agent. We're all here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
We're going to go to public comment, and then we'll come back to the board.
Thane Losman.
Thane Losman. Just had a conversation, because I knew I was right, but I had a conversation with an environmental attorney when I stepped outside. When you have an existing contamination protocol in place, he said they're sucking out dirty water and pumping back in fresh water, that should automatically trigger a phase 2. I saw phase 1. If I'm mistaken, and they have a phase 2 environmental assessment, where is it? Because I didn't see it up there. So because this property was so contaminated, they're doing that, where's the phase 2? If there's no phase 2, then you can tell them to go back, the applicant, and bring one. Why is that important? Because during construction workers may have long-term impacts from hanging around contaminated property. It just goes back to Gagnon's credibility. He's still an interim guy. Can't we get somebody that knows what the rules are, understands phase 1 and phase 2? It shouldn't be my job to explain that to you guys. Hopefully there's a federal grand jury looking at Gagnon and some other stuff in Riviera Beach. Hopefully they'll take him down. The state attorney said he's not going to charge him, even though there's a probable cause affidavit, doesn't want to ruin his life. He didn't have a problem ruining Lady March's life, but we need somebody in here. I don't know what the name of that guy with the dreadlocks who used to run that. He should get the job back. But I think this goes a long way to his credibility. Maybe I missed it. But if there's not a phase 2 right here right now, then you need to table this, tell the applicant to go get a phase 2, because Gagnon should have done that.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right. Public comments from the board?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I've gotten a lot of calls from residents in regards to the contamination of the soil in this area. And given that the city's water plant will be in the general radius of this area, I think we really need to look at the fact that the disruption of soil during construction may emanate some type of chemicals or whatever the case may be. And that's a very big concern for the residents who live in that area. So I'm asking what else is in place to ensure from the city side that contaminants will be contained, or that there is some type of continuous cleanup of the area.
Mr. Evans or Mr. Gagnon?
So I do want to provide the opportunity for the applicant or agent to respond to that as well. However, the information that we've been provided is this is a groundwater issue. It's not a surface level issue. Even the phase 1 environmental report didn't go into any sort of detail or concern about the dirt itself at the surface level. The construction will actually be adding more fill and actually encapsulating the south side of the site by placing the new foundation of the building. So all of the reports to date that I've seen don't indicate any issue with the surface of the site. It's all ground level contamination and groundwater issues specifically. Mr. Nichols, if you want to add anything. Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board. For the record, Josh Nichols, with Schmidt Nichols, agent for the applicant. So, as Jeff was saying, and I did want to respond to the comment from the public, this site is it's an REC, which is a recognized environmental condition. So the reason there's not a phase 2 is because there's already the presence of a contamination issue. So there's no reason to go into a phase 2. If they were the first buyers after the contamination had happened, and then they went to do a development, they uncovered the contamination, then absolutely you'd go to a phase 2. But there's no need. It's already been deemed as a recognized environmental condition. So that is kind of set in stone. They were just basically memorializing that. So I did want to reflect on that. And then in terms of the discussion on the kind of, if we're moving those soils around, things like that, that could cause some issues to the community. So what I wanted to show, even going back to 2008, you can see the south, and I'll do with the mouse here. So the south portion of the property is where the expansion is going to happen, and that's all been concrete. It's all paved over. That was parking lot. So there's no contamination under that parking lot. So let me go into 2014. What you can see is there was actually an expansion to this building prior to Storage Rental of America taking ownership, and that expansion, I'll show you here, was set for this pad area. So this pad was already, whatever had to be done to get that prepared has already been done. And then moving into 2019, a most recent aerial, so basically that pad never got built. It was sold. Storage Rental of America bought it. So that pad is just sitting there waiting, and we're going to pave over it and put that portion of the building and also some of the parking. So basically, there's no disturbance to anything that would be contaminated under that parking lot area. So just wanted to hopefully clear that up for you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So you're gonna build on top of the concrete? You're not gonna disturb the concrete at all?
Well, let me go back to, sorry. Go to this site plan here. So really what you saw in the other picture where the sand started was basically right here at this line of the building. So this concrete remains, and then we're building over that exposed sand that was prepped for a pad some years ago. So all that becomes building, and then you have some detention area, and then this is paved for parking. So that area that was already disturbed back in 14 is the area that we're utilizing for the building construction. So that will be, which I think is a good thing, it's actually further capped off so that there's no way that can spread anywhere. But there, again, it was a groundwater thing as opposed to a soil contamination. And also, just to point this out, this building was actually required to be erected on the site, which is the groundwater scrubber. So that is extracting groundwater, scrubbing it, and then injecting that clean water back into the groundwater. So, and it's constantly doing that. They're required to do a semi-annual report for EPA, and they've been doing so, and the monitoring is up to date. So, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Mr. Gagnon, I want to ask you about the principal arterial design standards overlay that typically applies to our primary roads. I know Blue Heron being one of them. And
Yes.
one of those components of that design standard overlay provides that, I don't know, this is going to be tough, so help me out. It provides that it has to be compatible with other, I guess, the other design standards in that area. Will this be, I guess, the initial design standard that we would have to go on?
So if I'm thinking of the section you're referencing, it has to do with compatibility amongst other developments along that stretch of roadway?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly what it says, uses
Okay.
that are compatible.
In that regard, there really isn't a new standard that has been set. You know, the adjacent properties are of a pure industrial use. What this property owner is proposing to do would meet the current level of architectural standards that are provided within the code. I believe that code section kind of talks to kind of overall theme. However, the specific elements that are called out within that principal arterial overlay standard are satisfied by this proposal. We actually had a couple discussions with the development team as far as the overall amount of windows and glazing that were being provided on the design. The final architectural design is very different than what was originally proposed. And from a staff standpoint, we think that this is much more compatible with what we're looking to achieve along Blue Heron, specifically because this is an industrial development as well. So we're trying to bring what is an existing facility and an industrial use up to somewhat of a commercial standard, so to speak, as far as the design. So we think that we're heading in that direction.
Follow up. So, Mr. Gagnon, I appreciate that. And I was able to see the landscape plan that you had up above, and then I can see this aerial. And I even seen the rendering of from the north. Is there anything that can kind of give us more information on what the architectural features that we look to have in a principal arterial design overlay area like this? Because, and I'm saying, let me say this, because, and I appreciate it coming forth, but this, according to section 31551, is going to be the standard. Because this is the first development that I know of along Blue Heron Boulevard. And obviously it calls out the other primary streets, but like, you know, the trees are nice, but I really am looking for something that's going to make this stand out on Blue Heron Boulevard. And every other business, including the other property just to the north of, on the north side of Blue Heron, has to basically come with it. They have to come with something that's compatible and that looks, you know, to kind of, you know, have some synergy, if you will. So I just, it's really hard for me to see it from here. And that's my only concern.
Yeah, I think this development, to your point, as far as using this as a benchmark for all other redevelopment, it's probably not the point we want to be using. I will say that, you know, the development team and property owner is willing to do improvements to the facade of this building, even though they're not necessarily modifying that building footprint. So we're trying to take this as an opportunity during this expansion process to try to bring the site up to current code standards to the greatest extent possible. I think from a staff's expectation standpoint and the community's expectation, if this was brand new development, it would be a very different architectural design. But, you know, we're working with a building that was constructed in 1959 for a very industrial purpose, and, you know, trying to make modifications to make it as aesthetically pleasing as possible, but it's not the best framework to work from to begin with. So as we have new development opportunities coming into the city, I think one of which we'll see in the very near future on the north side of the roadway, which is a commercial type of use. I think the council and public will be pleased with the type of architectural design that we'll see from new development proposals.
Yeah, well, this site plan is permitted by right, correct?
So it's an existing use, so we're considering an expansion of existing use.
However, the accompanying ordinance requires,
Can you pull your microphone up?
I'm sorry, I just lost it. The accompanying ordinance does what, Mr. Gagnon?
So if this use was not existing, if it was a brand new applicant, we would have to go through a special exception approval process.
I'm sorry, but I thought there was a ordinance that goes along with, maybe it's the next item that we take up.
Yeah, in item number 16, what we're looking to do is create a definition for self-storage use, self-service storage use. as well as place that to a zoning district and require a special exception approval process for that use. With this particular project, it's an existing use and it's an expansion of existing use, so it's more or less grandfathered into the current location. So we want to see the renovation occur, we want to see the redevelopment and, architectural improvements, the landscape improvements. However, it's a unique circumstance because it's already existing.
I got you. Question for Mr. Nichols. And I'm gonna kind of follow back right where I left off with him. I see it, but I don't. And again, Blue Heron is the primary street in Riviera Beach. And I see flowers, but, I was really looking to see something that's gonna really stand out. And then, so the one visual that you have from the next slide, I think it is, that I'm a little confused because I don't know how that really comes to offer any more as far as aesthetically pleasing. I mean, maybe it doesn't have enough color, but I guess I had some other expectation. Plus, we have what appears to be, I don't know if those are attic spaces on top of the
I believe
building.
those are the mechanical equipment, so those are the screens, they're screening equipment up there. So structures are required, and that's always been there historically as well. So those screen the mechanical, but basically the entire facade has been redone, and the glazing requirements for the overlay have been included, and I think we're even exceeding that glazing requirement, because, go ahead.
Okay. There won't be any kind of large signage, would it?
No signage on the building. We
Is
just
it
have
the same monument
sign. Yeah, so actually that will, there's a large wall sign there, the all AC self-storage, so that will go away, and then you'll just have the monument sign.
Okay, my only concern is I'm really was expecting and hoping that we can have something that's really, like a flagship, something, and I know it's an old building, so you have to kind of work with it, but something that's really gonna stand out and promote the Blue Heron Quarter, because I want you guys to be the catalyst to force the development on the north side of the road, that they have to really meet these standards. And, if we get, and I'm not saying that it is now, but if we get something that's not the best or perhaps even subpar, then that becomes the standard. And then, it's kind of like fruitless to have an overlay zone where we want to go after businesses or attract businesses that kind of, and I think this is going to even apply to us with our new facility that we're building just, 500 or 600 feet to the east. So the landscape is good. I just wanted to see some real good features on the building. So that's all I have.
Madam Chair, do you have a rendering of what the landscape, it's hard for me to imagine what that's going to look like when I'm looking at it from Blue Heron. My biggest concern about that building has always been, it just sticks out there with this bare lawn pretty much in front of it. Do we have any picture that shows what to me, it's most important, the building, fine, okay, it's, but it's most important that it looks beautiful from a landscape perspective. Do you have anything that would show us what that will look like?
We don't have a street,
Yeah,
I guess,
street
rendering
view.
of that. No, we don't. But we were concerned for the client because it's going to be difficult to see the building. This landscaping is so dense that
Good.
which I know that's the reason I said it, because I think you'll be happy with that.
Good.
But it's a pretty dense landscape package that is going to go in front of the building. So, and the reason why it's set back is there's a 50-foot easement from the property line, so it has to be set back a bit. But it's going to be a huge improvement
Good.
from what's out there. And that same motif, because we did the landscaping for the property to the north as well, that you'll see has the same motif. So you'll see a continuity there along the corridor.
Go ahead.
Well,
Yes. Who you?
Yeah, even though the aesthetics aside, I'm very, very, very concerned about this contamination. This place has a historical place here in the city in terms of the level of contamination that happened there. And I don't think that was even brought to us, because I asked about this the last time, about the history of this location. Because if the EPA has a permanent spot out there, this is some serious contamination going on here. So I'm very uncomfortable with moving forward without having everything that we have to know brought to us about this contamination. I mean, the EPA has a permanent spot out there.
Absolutely.
That's serious. So I don't think that, you know, like I said, aesthetics aside, I'm still not comfortable with the information about this contamination at this site. And you're gonna go in and you say you're gonna build on top of the concrete, but most likely you'll be drilling holes for some type of structure. So I am very concerned about the fact that this disturbance in this location, and as I said before, in the radius of our new water department, I can't move forward unless I have more information about this whole contamination now.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Would you be able to give us some more insight on the phase 1 and phase 2? Because we kind of glossed over it, and more so in layman's terms so I can understand.
Yeah, so typically where you would start, you come to a clean site and you would do a phase 1 environmental. So that's basically looking, they're gonna do some borings, they're gonna do some soil tests, some groundwater tests. If anything looks suspicious, they're gonna then move to a phase 2. They're gonna come back to the client, they'll say, we found some stuff that looks a little bit odd, we need to do a phase 2. The phase 2 is more the deep dive. So that's when they're uncovering, you know, how many parts per million or parts, depending on what those chemicals are, what the contamination is. So that's kind of a quick run through. Again, why there's not a phase 2 is because this has been extremely documented as a Superfund site with the EPA. So all the remediation that's required to address this contamination has been addressed to EPA's standards, protocols, regulations. So if there was something that could harm the community, there would be a remediation requirement in their schedule and in their monitoring. The only thing that they're required to do, again, this is from at the EPA federal level, is for that groundwater contamination remediation. So they are doing that semi-annual reporting. I mean, everything is in place. So again, when I fully understand your concern, but I don't know that there's any more information, because again, you can go on the internet and you can find the contamination issues and also the remediation practices and how they're regulated.
So,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry, so a follow-up for that. With the new building, the new development, and the new drilling that's going to go on with the addition to the complex, is there any additional testing that needs to happen because we're going back further into the parcel as opposed to what was the original building?
No, because there's the soil, again, the soils aren't the issue, and we're not going into the groundwater. So we're basically, you know, laying a slab. They actually will have to bring in additional dirt because the existing elevation, let me just show you on the existing elevation of the building up here is about 17, and this area is about, say, roughly 14 and a half. So we're gonna actually need to bring in fill, which again, will further cap anything that potentially could be there. And so, yeah, so we're not gonna be disturbing anything below that grade, definitely not the groundwater, which is the area of issue.
Okay, so sorry.
Mr. Lawson, go ahead.
Question, the signage for the building. Being that you're going to be increasing the density with the landscaping, what kind of signage is the building going to have?
The building won't have any signage on the wall.
So no street signage either?
There will be a monument sign, I believe it's right here, actually.
Is that the one that was hit, that's laying down now? What is that laying down with the yellow tape around it for about a year?
I think that's telecommunications.
The communication
I
box?
think it was some equipment box that was struck by a vehicle that hasn't been repaired, but the monument sign is just east of that location.
Okay. All right, I'll come back to the box.
And that monument sign would just be refaced. It's the same sign that's out there.
So it's going to be the same monument sign there?
In the same location, just refaced to match the building upgrades.
I think I had some of the same concerns that Councilman McCoy had, just in regards to the aesthetics of the building, being that it's our thoroughpass coming down Broadway. That's my biggest concern. And I know we're going to be building on the back end, which is not going to be visible to Broadway, but if there's any way that the resurfacing can be done, so even if it's visible out between the new palm trees and shrubs that are actually in the building, we need to see something that's going to really be attractive for that corridor.
Understood.
Was it McCoy, or I think you were trying to say something, then I let Ms. Lanier go.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about, to be comfortable with this, moving forward with this, I would like to have a full report from the EPA, and I asked about this before too. And if they can come present to us, because I am serious about this contamination here. This is nothing, we're going to go in with a full-scale, building in the back of this property that we know for a fact that's on the internet is contaminated. That's not even the issue here. The issue is to make sure that whatever is disturbed on this property does not come back to harm us. And I would like to hear from the EPA. I would want to hear from the EPA, but environmental issues in Black communities is something that they're not good at. But for us to move forward with this, I would definitely want to hear from the EPA about this property, because this is listed on the EPA's website as one of their sites where there's large contaminations. And we're talking about in the whole country. It's listed as one of those sites. So I do take this very serious, and I do take the fact that there will be development happening on the same exact site, and I want to be 100% sure as we move forward that this will not come back to hurt our community.
Mr. Gagnon, can we get something in writing from the EPA to satisfy what Ms. Lanier is speaking of?
City staff would be more than happy to reach out. I don't know if we can compel them to respond in any set amount of time, but again, we can definitely honor that request and reach out and see if there's additional information that can be provided to council.
Madam Chair?
Ms. Lanier?
Yeah, I would definitely want that before I move forward. I want to be assured that, as I said before, aesthetics aside, and also that building that's at near the outlet mall, that storage facility really should be a standard for how they should look anyway. And this is very sparsely done.
You said an outlet mall?
Yeah, the one right on Palm Beach Lakes in Congress.
You're talking about the one down?
Yeah, the one they just built
Oh, I
right
thought you were
across.
talking about here in the city, huh?
No, I'm just saying in terms
You're
of.
saying the way that it is
the way,
designed?
yes, the way that it, the large amount of landscape, the large amount of trees and shrubbery, so that you don't even know what it is. But anyway, that aside, I can't move forward with this without having something from the EPA to move forward, because this is serious in terms of this contamination on this land. And if we're going to continue to move forward with, and I'm sure at some point you might want to expand again. So I want to be very clear and very sure that this contamination is contained, and that there are, phases to ensuring, into perpetuity, that this is taken care of.
Madam Chair, are you done, Shirley? Sorry.
I am.
Thank you. I just need to understand this. Where did the EPA find the contamination?
So the issue is with the groundwater source.
Okay.
So this is.
How deep is that? How deep are we talking?
Subterranean issue.
How far down?
6 to 7 feet, somewhere, someplace 10.
How many feet?
6 to 10. It roughly
Okay,
varies.
so 10 feet down, there's contaminated water, which is being pumped out, cleaned, and pumped back in.
That's correct.
10 feet down.
That's correct.
So where you're building, will you be going into that level 10 feet deep at all?
No, we're pouring a pad and then building on top of the pad.
So there's absolutely no chance, please confirm for me, there's no chance, and Mr. Gagnon, if you would also confirm for me, there's no chance that anything you do with regard to this addition to this building is going to touch that contaminated water in any way.
That's correct. We will not be touching the groundwater.
Okay. In fact, what you're saying is you're going to build up the land to cap it even further to be 14 feet down instead of 10 feet down.
Yeah, Yeah, we need to bring the finished floor up.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
again, I'm saying to you, is there any chance that anything you would do, and Mr. Gagnon, I ask this of you as well, and Mr. Evans, I ask you to confirm for me what your understanding is there any chance that anything you do there can hurt any of us in this community?
No, we will not be touching the groundwater, and only the soil, which does not have contaminated issues with it, so.
Okay.
We will
Point
not be
of
touching
order,
that.
point of order, Madam Chair. These people are not EPA experts.
Well, excuse me, Madam Commissioner, I'm not asking that they be EPA experts. They are experts in their own fields, and what I'm asking is, do they have any intention of getting into the area that the EPA has defined as the contaminated area? And that's my question, and they're answering me no. So,
Madam Chair. Is the
Well, hold on, Mr. McCoy actually has been trying to get in for a minute.
Okay.
Even though he had already been
So,
invited.
actually, they already took the thunder from me, Mr. Nichols, but you said that this site was a Superfund site, which means that this does pose a threat to the environment and also to surroundings. Not a brownfield, which a brownfield is remediated, but you know, when you said Superfund site, that really kind of, my antennas went up, and I was really concerned about how do you abate that? How do you remediate something of this side? Because again, Superfund sites are a lot more severe as far as risk and that sort of thing. And then, if that's true, what is the most recent review by EPA in what that?
They're all good questions. So it is a Superfund site, and absolutely, it's a high level of contamination that was out there, and they came down heavy on Honeywell and Solatron that caused the issue. Basically, we can't do anything more to solve the contamination issue. It is being done as we speak. That remediation building that I spoke of is working. I don't know what intervals it works, but it's working on a daily or weekly basis, whatever is needed to do that remediation. And the last report, so when the current owner bought the property, this report was done in mid-2018. And again, there was a semi-annual monitoring report conducted in November 2016. And in 2017, the facility has been operating a groundwater treatment system since March 30th, 2009. So 2009 was when whatever came down from the EPA, they said, you need to start this practice to make sure you're cleaning up that Superfund site. So March 2009 was when the system includes 2 groundwater extraction wells, 1 injection well. The system pumps groundwater from extraction well 1 and extraction well 2 to a low-profile air stripper designed to remove volatile organic compounds present in the extracted groundwater to levels below their respective groundwater cleanup target levels. And then once it's treated, it's pumped back into the groundwater. And what they've done is the samples that are collected from those the scrubbers has shown the contaminants are being pulled out of the water. So it is doing its job. So I guess the point is, by us developing this further, we can't do anything more to correct the issue. It's being corrected to the standards of the EPA as we speak through a semi-annual reporting, which is still going on today.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
This on the EPA website, and it says that the EPA is addressing the site because of contaminated soil and groundwater.
I'm not aware of the soil issues, but
It
there's
is
groundwater for
soil
that I know
issues.
of.
That's what the site says.
Okay.
And this is the EPA.
Okay.
Go ahead,
I don't
Mr.
So I just want to say that I'm just not comfortable moving
Okay.
forward with not having experts here
Okay.
in this particular issue to address us and to give us the background and the history that we need to be able to make a decision that not only just us sitting here, but the community feels safe in terms of moving forward with this.
All right, Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, if I may, hearing some of the comments and concerns expressed by the board, I think in the abundance of caution, one thing the board can consider is postponing this item to a date certain, and then we can, as staff, reach out to the EPA, but also look to hire our own environmental consultant to look at the information and then provide you a third-party, unbiased opinion concerning this matter. because we do want to make sure that the board is comfortable with the decision that is being made. So if the board would indulge staff with regards to that request, we just have to set a specific date so the clerk can go ahead and provide the appropriate notice, and then staff would work to getting the appropriate parties involved. We'll also utilize the resources through our lobbyists to maybe even get some additional information through the EPA, so they'll return our phone calls, and maybe we can get someone from there to show up and provide some insight. But I think there's two things that we can do to address those concerns that you may have, and ultimately bring it to a point where a decision can be made based on the outstanding items that you still need clarity on.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Evans, how much time would you need to secure a specialist to review the site and then also get communication with EPA?
Councilman, I would say if the board would look to give us probably your next regular city council meeting, so which would be the 4th of March, should give us a little bit of time to be able to solidify that, because we can work on that as early as tomorrow as far as getting an environmental consultant to take a look at the information that's already readily available. Or if the board wants to be in the abundance of caution, postpone it till March 18th. That would give us, more than adequate time.
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think that's an excellent idea. I think as you say, in an abundance of caution, and to allay any concerns that we have as a community, it makes sense for us to get this information. Somewhat tangential to this issue, and if I might take a slight detour, I think we need someone on staff who would be an environmental planner, someone in our planning department who would look at the issues, for example, of what happens to the submerged lands when developers come and try to develop them, what happens to the environmental issues over there. I think throughout our city, because we are so sensitive from an environmental standpoint, we need somebody on staff, and I would ask that perhaps we, with the indulgence of my colleagues, that we ask our city manager to take a look at whether or not somebody like that would be of benefit to the city, and in which case these issues as they come up would be investigated prior to even coming to the council.
Madam Chair, if I may, that's certainly something that we can discuss in further detail as part of the budget process, which we're probably going to be starting in the next 2 months.
All right. Yes.
Madam Chair. So, Mr. Nichols, is there anything that you can bring us back from an elevation perspective from the north that really lets us know what this building is going to look like when you pass by? I mean, what I seen was kind of vague, but you are going to be the standard bearer, and I really want something that, you know, is going to wow someone when they pass by. And I know Councilwoman Botel said, well, that's good that we have the trees. I'm not so much concerned with the trees in the front. I want the structure to be something that you have to look twice to recognize that it's an actual storage unit, because you don't typically see storage units. I guess you do see storage units on primary streets, but we only have a handful in Riviera Beach, and I don't want that to be what people come to recognize Riviera Beach when you're approaching a city water treatment facility, and then you cross the railroad tracks and you see the City Hall complex and the Wells Recreation Complex to see a storage unit. I mean, it is what it is, but I would like to see if we can really make it, you know, a flagship building.
Understood. I think the rendering from the street view will do a lot to help combine the architecture with the plant material. I think you'll really see that come to life. So, and what I wanted to say too, I spoke to representative from Storage Rental of America, and we can partner was the company who did the environmental study, the phase one. We can have a representative there who can speak. I'm the planning side of it, so I would want to have someone who actually did this research and can come and kind of discuss this with you further and make sure. I want you to be comfortable with it as well. So.
All right, so do we have someone that would like to make a motion for the postponement?
Madam Chair, I'd like to
Yes.
make a motion to table this item until March.
Postpone? Postpone.
Postpone?
Mm-hmm.
Postpone until March 18th council meeting, and also to in that interim, the city do its due diligence to make sure that we protect our residents, and also hiring a consultant to even look at, should it even be developed at all?
I second.
Okay.
All right, Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, I did not hear who seconded that motion.
Botel.
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you. Item number 16, ordinance on second and final reading.
Madam Chair, if I may, this item is tied to the previous item that the board effectively postponed. So it would be staff's recommendation to effectively do the same.
Mr. Manager, I'm sorry. So it is intimately connected, however, it would have global implications as well. So from a staff standpoint, if the other site plan were to not move forward, we would still want this language to proceed.
No,
If
no.
I think that they're interrelated, and the concern that I have with regards to that is that the board has already given its direction concerning this particular item. I think even if we try to move forward with it, there's still some intentions that there may be some unintended consequences associated with that, and so I think the board is going to be apprehensive in regards to passing this item. So, but if the board would like to indulge that, they can certainly do that.
Yeah, I'm fine with putting
Question.
it along with the other one. Go ahead.
Mr. Gagnon, what impact would it have outside of this specific location?
So right now, staff currently doesn't have a definition for self-storage use. So if we received an application tomorrow, we wouldn't have a code-defined section to help us process it. So completely separate and I apologize for my interruption before, but completely separate from the other item we just discussed. And I think rightfully so, taking the time to get the environmental information on the other item is appropriate. This other proposal for ordinance on second reading really has to do with the city's code structure and trying to improve the existing language within the code structure for any other applicants that could submit application in the future.
Madam Chair?
Hold on, Mr. McCoy.
Yes, so, and I think the last time, or maybe it's in this backup, I think we have, what, 4 other ones that's in the city?
That's correct. There's 4 existing facilities in the city and the one public storage facility on the north side of Blue Heron that's in unincorporated Palm Beach County.
Okay, I mean, this is the question. So if we're not satisfied with the results of whatever comes out of the additional studies from EPA and the other regulatory agencies, they're permitted by right to move forward on this. Am I correct, Mr. Gagnon?
I am hesitant to answer that directly at this point. I think if there's new information that comes to light for some reason, we should process that separately.
Okay, so, well, if that's true, then I don't see why this would be a hindrance on us moving forward if we have no regulations on the other self-storage facilities.
Director Gagnon, if I may, if the board was to move forward with adopting this ordinance as provided, would the operation as it stands right now, the one we just referenced, stand to benefit from, or their business model or practice change as a result of this particular modification?
I would say no. What's being proposed, and it's really a benefit to the city and to staff to have this one definition for a self-service storage facility is being proposed. So that allows us to place new applications that are submitted into this category if appropriate. Additionally,
So, Madam Chair, we're going to hear this item now?
We're not hearing this item right now. We're just trying to define whether or not we need to hear the item, or is it going to go to March 18th meeting? So we're not doing a presentation unless we're going to do the motion and the
The city manager just recommended that we table this item as well.
Mr. McCoy was asking.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
What
McCoy.
was
Right.
the difference? So did you get your answer?
And let me be clear. The reason I'm asking is because of the ones that's on Military Trail.
Right.
And if you see them, I wish we could do something about this truck repair place, but when you see them, it's like you don't even recognize that it's a storage unit because it's some of everything there. So that's why I wanted to find out, with us adopting this ordinance, some kind of way, I guess, I don't know what the impact or even the nexus is for, the site plan application for the storage unit. But this was supposed to be global, and I don't understand. Maybe I'm not. It's completely independent. Yeah, mutually
All right, so
exclusive.
you all want to hear the item?
Yeah.
I mean,
Mr.
he's here.
Lawson and Ms. Lanier?
No, I do not.
Mr. Lawson?
Because this language is tied into this property that we're tabling, I don't think we should be listening to the item tonight. I think we should wait till the March 18th meeting.
Yeah, I'm fine with waiting until March 18th.
Say
So
your
who,
piece.
do we have somebody that wants to make a motion to postpone item number 16?
I'd like to make a motion to postpone item number 16.
16.
Item number 16, which is in conjunction with item number 15 for our March 18th meeting.
You have a second?
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
No.
Pro Tem Botel.
No.
Chairperson Miller Anderson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with Councilpersons McCoy and Botel dissenting.
All right, item number 17.
Ordinance number 4144, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Section 2-106.1, created by ordinance number 978, supplemental regulations concerning salary grades and classification of the City Code of Ordinances by deleting certain language and sections and modifying the city manager's authority in salaries offered, providing for severability, conflicts, and codification, and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, we do have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
All right, Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I can ask Ms. Eureka Young to present this item on behalf of Ms. Dickerson. Unfortunately, she was not able to be in attendance this evening.
Good evening, Council. Eureka Young, Department of Human Resources. At the last council meeting, at the first reading of this item, there was questions regarding what other municipalities are doing in regards to the city manager's authority to appoint at certain salaries. Thank you. So the HR department surveyed the neighboring municipalities within the county, as well as cities south of us. And what was, okay. So we looked at the city of Boca Raton, Delray, Jupiter, Lake Worth Beach, Lantana.
Could you go back for a minute? I wasn't able to read that fast.
Okay. I was just naming the cities, and
I
then
know,
I'm
but
going to go back.
I wanted to see what that said.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I'll go through them individually. The city of Boca Raton, the city manager has the full and final authority within the salary ranges. And of course, there's no need to take the item back to city council. Delray Beach, decisions up to 20% rest with the Human Resources Director. Salary requests above 20% requires recommendation by the Human Resources Director to the city manager for final approval. The town of Jupiter, the town manager has full discretion to hire within the range. Lake Worth Beach, the city manager has full authority regarding salaries. Lantana, all salary recommendations require approval by the town manager. In Royal Palm Beach, the village manager approves salaries not to exceed 25% above the minimum rate, no indication of council involvement. And the town of Palm Beach, the Human Resources Director may approve appointments up to 5% above the minimum range pay. Town manager approves above 5% to the midpoint of the range. For department directors and deputy manager positions, town manager makes salary decision within the range without council involvement. Okay. Can you do this for me? Also, the HR department and finance department looked at current inequities. Before I go any further, are there any questions regarding that, or would you want me to go?
Actually, I do have a question.
Okay.
So for Lantana, it says all salary recommendations require approval by the town manager. So do they have no minimum and maximum? They just decide whatever the town manager thinks?
There is a minimum and maximum.
Oh, okay, because I didn't see it like it was indicated in the other ones.
Okay.
What about for the first slide? I believe you had Boca Raton.
How you go? Boca Raton, the city manager has the full and final authority within the salary range.
In Delray, do they have a range?
Yes. I will, that's on another slide that I could
Madam Chair.
get to.
So Ms. Young, so I guess perhaps you probably recognize where I'm going or where I see this different. Some of them are saying that there's ranges and then there's other ones that don't allude to it. So I want to make sure that I'm asking, you're saying all of these cities have ranges?
Yes, all of the city have ranges. Would you take this down for me?
Okay.
And go to the others. Yes, that one there. Okay, so in this slide, in these following slides here, we looked at several positions and what the neighboring municipalities are paying. And this is their salary range. The red dot is the minimum of the other municipalities. The green is where the city's starting range, and the blue dots is the other city's maximum pay. If you can see, our starting pay is slightly higher than our neighboring municipalities. However, our neighboring municipalities, their maximum pay is much larger or much greater than our maxed out pay. So our starting may be higher, but their max out pay is much greater than ours. So
Madam Chair, where are we listed? Are we the green?
we're the green, yes.
And that represents our range?
That's, the green represents our starting, yes, our starting and our max.
So
And
the-
this is one particular, like as far as finance.
So
Okay, so this is.
Now, if
just
you
one-
want,
one-
okay,
one
if you,
job. There's one position, right?
That's just one
Finance
position.
All right,
No, but
Okay.
let me make sure I'm understanding. So the lower point, which is, let me use your glasses, Doc. I don't use glasses, but I guess it's 110. Is that what you're saying? Is that's the lower minimum for the public works position?
yes, okay, the 110 is where it's slightly a little larger than 110, maybe 115 or 112 for the city of Boca Raton. But you could see that is their starting pay. Their max out is near 180. For Boynton Beach, their starting pay for a public works director is less than 100,000, but their max out is maybe about 145, 150. For the city of Delray Beach, their starting pay for a public works director is right at 100,000 or or more, but their max out pay is more than 160. Okay. The City of Palm Beach Gardens, their starting pay for a public works director is less than 80,000, but their max out pay is about 125. Let's see, and we looked at the City of Hollywood. Their starting pay for a public works director is slightly over 100,000, but their maxed out pay is 170,000 or more.
Okay, so with this information, what are we gleaning from this? What are you saying that the?
Okay,
I guess.
The bottom line issue is, even though in certain regards our starting pay might be slightly higher, their maxed out pay is much larger. And the one takeaway that we have from this is the city manager has the full authority to set salaries within the range without having to take anything back for city council for ratification.
For certain cities, we're talking
For
about.
certain cities. We have not found a city that we have to take something back to the city council for approval.
Madam Chair? So if you go back to that slide that says Royal Palm, what happens after that 25% minimum? Do they just not hire somebody for that position? What happens after that? Because you said no council involvement. Is he just not allowed to hire anybody outside of that 25% over the minimum?
Okay, that's the question I don't know the answer to that one.
Could you go back to that slide for me, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
That's on another PowerPoint.
It's a different PowerPoint.
Okay.
If I can.
Go
I think what she was saying, Councilman, is that the city manager has the authority regardless of, within the range, the city manager does not have to come back to council to make a hire. Is that your understanding?
But you were talking about the 25%, right, Mr. Lawson?
Yeah, Royal Palm.
Within the
I believe
range.
was the next slide.
Well, there it is right there.
Yeah.
So when you say no indication of council involvement, so he can only hire, or he or she can only hire within the range not to exceed 25% above the minimum.
Okay, I have my notes here.
Yes, ma'am.
It's the amount shall not receive 25 cents above the minimum rate in the range.
Okay, so then my question is, for Royal Palm Beach,
Yes.
what happens if they want to hire a department head over 25% of the minimum range?
According to our notes here, the amount should not exceed 25% above the range. Period.
So they can't hire anybody outside of 25% of the minimum range. So then why do they have a minimum and maximum range?
Every, having a minimum and a
I'm sorry, Dr.
maximum.
Botel, one moment, please.
A
Thank you.
minimum and a maximum range is pretty much a guideline or basic to your compensation plan.
Correct. So that means that if they found an individual that they'd like to hire above that 25% range, do they not have the authority, whether it's the council or the city manager, to hire that person in Royal Palm Beach?
I will have to go back to get that answer, because based off of what I have, in Royal Palm Beach, they cannot exceed 25%.
Okay. So to give that example, if we're looking at an individual that's highly qualified, that they want to pay 26%, my question is, and the reason that we asked about range is because we're trying to apply this to our current ordinance we're trying to implement. There's a range that they have in place. If Royal Palm Beach has the authority to hire somebody between 25% over the minimum, if they want to bring someone in over that amount, what is their procedure? That's the question I have, because that still hasn't been answered for me.
Okay, I will have to go back and get that answer from Royal Palm Beach.
Thank you. And I would believe with any of the positions, because no indication of council involvement doesn't determine what their process is. And we're trying to implement a policy that can assist us with the hiring practices.
Well, we have spoke before on implementing the employee handbook. And the employee handbook will include a composition pay or a composition policy that would dictate how pay and promotions and salary is set within the city, just as it is with other municipalities. Most places have a composition policy set in place that they follow in determining the starting pay, the pays for promotion, pays for reclassification. Once we get our handbook, that we will have that for the city.
Madam Chair,
Okay.
I'm sorry, are you saying composition or are you saying compensation?
Compensation, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
I thought that was,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
compensation.
Madam Chair, I just like to say the majority of these cities that are listed are giving the city manager the ability to make a decision within a salary range. Given if the salary range is from 30 to 40,000, he has the right to make a decision between that range. Am I correct in saying that?
Most of the cities,
No.
the salary ranges can vary. Most are within 30 to 40,000, maybe $50,000.
I just threw
Yes.
a number out there. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
within the range, not to exceed the maximum.
Right.
Follow up.
I'm not finished, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
I also want to make a point that whatever the contention is, I don't want to have the city manager to come, these agendas are long enough, and to have the city manager to come before this council every time he wanted to bring someone here that was qualified for the position, that probably is making more where they are. That's what they call recruitment. That's what they call, poaching, trying to go and find someone who is good at their job and bring them to your shop. So going over all of this information, it is clear that we want to have the city manager in a position, whomever that city manager may be, to make a decision about how they're going to pick the team that is going to work best with them. We are not supposed to be in the day-to-day management of the city. We are paying the city manager a salary to be able to make the right decision for his team. We're not working with these people, he is. So I feel that if we are going to debate this issue, then we can do that, but we need to be clear about what we're asking here. We're asking to be able to give the city manager discretion to make a decision within a salary range. We're not saying we're giving this man carte blanche to do whatever he likes. We're saying it's a salary range. He can make the decision within that range, and we can keep this moving. But we're sitting here going back and forth and, questioning the city manager's judgment. What do we pay him for? If we can't trust his judgment, and we can't trust him to pick the people who he needs to do all of this work that we have to do. Somebody has to do it. And I want the people who are best at doing their job to come to the city. And if we have to pay them more to come here, then so be it. Because we have a lot of work on the table to do here at the city. And to sit here and go back and forth and debate about giving somebody $25,000 and they just throw it away previously here at the city, then, it just really just gives me heartburn that we're sitting here going back and forth with this. Madam Chair, I'm not finished.
Hold on.
I would like to call the question, Madam Chair.
I mean, we're still in the
Hold
middle
on.
of asking questions and debate.
Right, we really are still in a discussion with it, so.
Madam Chair, I echo what Councilwoman Lanier has said. The point of this ordinance is to give our city manager the authority to hire people. It doesn't really matter, quite frankly, what Royal Palm Beach does, whether it's 25% or 50% or town of Palm Beach. What we have to decide here is, what do we want our city manager to be able to do? And what Councilwoman Lanier is saying is, we've hired a city manager who has the qualifications to hire the staff that he wants to have. And I, for one, would like to see him be able to do that.
Madam Chair?
All right, do we have someone that haven't had a comment at all on this item? Okay, myself. Let me just say this, so for this particular item, as long as he's hiring within the minimum and the maximum range, I would have no problems with that. Anything outside of that, then I definitely believe that needs to come back. But I think as long as we have a minimum and maximum range, hiring within that amount would be what I could support. So if anyone else needs to add anything or would like to say anything.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Lawson.
I wouldn't say, contrary to Councilwoman Lanier's point, is we're not questioning, well, I'm not questioning Mr. Evans' judgment. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our taxpayers. Our budget is based upon the minimum. We need to look at the protocols that we're putting in place in regards to budgeting and accounting for, because if Mr. Evans, our city manager, chooses to bring in somebody at $50,000, $60,000 over what we're budgeting, then we have an issue because that's affecting our actual bottom line. So that's why we have to take a look at every decision that's being made versus just saying that we're not going to have any limits. If we need to change the budgeting and what we account for in regards to salaries, maybe we need to budget for a median number versus the minimum, because literally that's going to affect our budget by this new hire by close to $40,000 for one hire, not including the other 6 other department heads we have to hire within the next couple months. So if we're going to give that range, we need to set a protocol so we can be prepared when we set the budget, because we have that responsibility. So that's my concern with us just giving an open-ended range. So it's not questioning Mr. Evans' judgment, because I trust Mr. Evans' judgment. That's why he's here and he's leading this department. But I also want to have a responsibility and know what numbers we're accounting for.
All right, anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just echoing Councilman Lawson, I agree with that too, but let's all think about this. We have the right city manager, but what if he leaves? Is this a precedent for every other city manager that comes, or do we pick and choose? So whatever decision we make, it needs to be a range. You guys need to come up with what that range is, and that goes for every city manager. I think you guys are hold him accountable, and the spending of the taxpayers' dollars accountable. So although I agree, we have the right city manager to do the job, to hire who he's supposed to hire, I still think the council should have some type of accountability to what goes on in that situation. And remember, because we was here before Mr. Evans, and it was a whole gridlock that we didn't give anybody an opportunity. Now, I hope Mr. Evans is here for longevity, but if he leaves, does the same opportunity goes for the next city manager, or do we pick and choose?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can I respond? I'm kind of waiting to ask some questions of.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am, hold on. Go ahead with your comments, and then we'll come back to you, Ms. Lanier.
Ms. Young, can you put that chart back up on the board? And let me say something. Here's the problem. I know everybody has a particular feeling about this, but we're about to change a 42-year standard. And you don't expect us to ask questions? And this very standard that I pointed out to you guys in April of 2019 seemed not to even apply because we rejected a selection that came before. So I just want to kind of ask these questions and see if Ms. Young is familiar with what I'm going to bring up. So I don't know if it was Ms. Dickerson or yourself that actually surveyed these cities, but the compensation here for these cities, do you know when those compensation studies or the current pay classifications were adopted?
Well, we called some of these, well, we called all of these cities. I know, and these are their fairly current practices.
Well, I mean, as far as compensation studies, I know we're in a situation where our compensation studies are probably close to 15 years of not being adjusted for inflation and cost of living and that sort of thing. But, you know, I don't know if this is apples to use cities who very well may be on top of taking care of their compensation study. My only concern,
Go ahead.
Okay, so my only concern was, you know, where they are with these, and are these current salaries based on 2020 market rates? And probably not 2020, I even say 2018. So that was my first portion that I wanted to kind of bring up. Secondly, By no means am I trying to impair the manager's ability. If you remember, members, I offered an alternative that allows him to accomplish every single thing that he wants to do to hire and recruit whoever he chooses. My only concern was that this process, if you do this, and I'm looking at the ordinance, and there's a few things that's wrong with the ordinance that I'll bring up later, but the very first thing that this does, it handpicks the candidates that gets an increase, as opposed to doing a citywide compensation study. And that is probably the most important thing that we should be doing as a city, because you're gonna have this disparate treatment where the manager in his authority under this new ordinance will be able to hire somebody for, let's say, 30% above that minimum range. And then you got a person that's been in the department for 25 years and they don't have that luxury. So my question was, are these cities current with their compensation and classification study? But I know certainly Riviera Beach isn't. So that's definitely why I believe that this doesn't even compare to where we are as a city. Furthermore, giving the manager this authority will go against every other practice that we've done. For instance, it even came up tonight. The manager has a 10% change order approval limit. Anything above that has to come to council. He has a $25,000 spending limit. Anything beyond that has to come to city council. I'm just afraid that if we do this, there's no oversight. And to the manager's point, he didn't want, and I certainly respect it, and I wanted to share more with you yesterday during our meeting, but he didn't want this to become a political process. You know, I even was ready to offer an alternative that I'm ready to give you 25%. If you need to go and hire that person, go right ahead. But I would expect that there is some level of accountability by the city council. That way, even if you don't bring their names, the mere fact that you have a goal to accomplish to hire someone, I mean, that shouldn't be impaired by us as city council members. But from the fiscal accountability standpoint, I just don't believe that we can completely open up the floodgates and allow this kind of ability for the manager to hire anybody with no checks and no balances. And clearly, that's exactly what this is. The decision might be political, but guess what? Riviera Beach is a political subdivision that's been established under state law. And that's just the nature of the game. If a person feels that kind of way about them names being publicly placed out there, then probably city government isn't the place for you. But everything is done in the public here. And if you wanted to bring an item forth, and that's what I wanted to offer as an amendment, that we can do 25%, and you don't even have to bring the individual candidate's name to us. But I just think that really usurps the authority in the longstanding tradition, and I know it's a tradition because of what happened in the past.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
With regards to the cities that were surveyed, I think we're grabbing on to the ones that have stipulation versus the other ones that do not have any stipulations. In addition to, if we were to survey the 412 municipalities in the state of Florida, I would venture to say that probably well over 80 to 90% have the situation whereby the city manager can operate within the respective range. Now, when we talk about a 40-year-old policy, things were different 40 years ago. We're trying to fill vacancies in an organization that has critical vacancies. In order to attract the best and the brightest, we cannot wait a month to get an item on the agenda, to have somebody's credentials, their resume, all that criticized, especially if they're gainfully employed. Everything that we do, whichever salary is proffered to any employee, is a public record, so it's always done in the sunshine. So when we hold on to certain provisions in here, I would venture to say that all those cities that are listed there, it's probably easier for them to attract department directors in those positions because of some of the stability elements that they've had in their city for a certain period of time. In addition to, any department director that's coming to this agency understands that you are a working department director. You are not sitting in an office being an administrator. So they know that coming in right off the bat. Every specific person that I have talked to as it relates to positions within this organization, the two provisions that they talk about is the stipulation as it relates to salary and the residency requirement that we have. A lot of other cities don't have that. If we want to move the needle and get the best and the brightest, allow management the flexibility and the autonomy to do so. If you think that we're operating outside of what the fiduciary responsibilities are, then certainly through the performance evaluation of the manager, you hold me accountable. Or you come back and you change the ordinance. We're asking for an opportunity and a chance to bring in the right people in this agency. If we do not adopt this ordinance as it stands or a modification, we're running the risk of finding ourselves going back through the application process. I have seen those applications, and I have seen the folks that we have gotten submitting for a position. And invariably, we have a lot of vacancies, and we don't have the depth of candidates that we would like for those vacancies. So I have no problem any position that's hired providing the board a recap as it relates to some of these positions. But I can tell you right now, if the board was to give me the authority to go 25% over the minimum, you would still have department directors that would come in today that will make less than their subordinate employees, as the policy sits right now. You have a situation now where there's people in a department that are in public safety that make more than the assistant city manager. There's inequities throughout the agency, but in order to get people to do the work, we have to be able to fill those critical vacancies in the agency. And I don't understand why, when we look at these different policies, why we can't see the town of Jupiter, the manager has full discretion. Lake Worth Beach, the manager has the full authority and discretion. In the adopted budget, we see the pay plan every year. My hope is that we fill all these vacancies and we're not having this conversation for 10 years. That's the hope, but we've got to get people on board. And there's a lot of positions that are waiting on the cusp. And I can tell you that good candidates don't want to make their appointments political and say, you know, I want to get 10%, or somebody to come in and say, I'll do it 5% cheaper, or et cetera. This is very customary. I've served on the board of directors for FCCMA. I've done compensation and classification studies. I've worked in multiple government agencies. None of them have the stipulation that we have. Thomas Jefferson says, as government change, as society changes, so should government. This is time for us to fall in line with the other agencies so we can bring people in here and get the work done that we need to get done.
So this is what I'm thinking. If, I think the manager had a point there, that if we'll go ahead and approve this tonight, and as he's making these, he's filling these positions for whatever amount that he may bring the people in. If for whatever reason we're feeling that he is going beyond what we think it should be, then we certainly can bring back an ordinance and go back and change it. If we feel he's being irresponsible or just wasting money, or if you have any type of concerns, we could most certainly bring it back. But I would hope, and I do believe Mr. Evans, and I'm speaking of Mr. Evans because he's the one that's in the position right now. If we get another city manager later on and then they start just giving out maximum ranges just for whatever reason, then obviously we need to change it. But I would hope that with them having to bring us a balanced budget, even when we're going through the budgeting process, if we're seeing that these positions are not, the people in the positions are not worth the amount of money, or we see that he's selecting people who are not performing their job, obviously we would hold that person accountable. And so at the end of the day, we do the evaluation of the city manager, and so we expect for him to have some level of professionalism to manage the range, you know, being able to hire people within that range. So at the end of the day, he would have to answer to us, whoever he is or she is in that position. Yes.
Madam Chair, there's a motion on the floor and a second.
Right.
Ma'am,
Mr. McCoy.
Can we at least have, this is the part.
But let me just say this, we have 10 minutes left, so we're gonna have to make a decision in a
Mr.
few minutes
Evans.
if we want to extend the meeting.
Mr. Evans, my question for you, and I certainly understand that, and I'm not trying to stifle you, but you said even if you were to give someone 25%, you're saying to me that they will still be lower than some of the current employees in the city?
Yes.
So that's the total point that I'm trying to say to the members and to the manager. So giving you this authority is not the answer. The answer is doing a system-wide compensation plan and then implementing it. Because if you did that, then you wouldn't need to go and give 25%.
You would still need to change the ordinance, because I still would only have 10%. Even if you, all the compensation study is gonna say is move the range by 10%, and then I just have 10%, so I'm still back in the
But
same
Mr. Evans, I even gave you an alternative 2 weeks ago. I said, okay, if we did a compensation study, then we would resolve it. But then I even went further to say, I'll even allow an amendment of 25%.
Okay. All right, so we know what your position is, Mr. McCoy. Mr. Lawson and Lanier and Botel, do you have anything else to add to this? If not, we can go ahead and call the question. I mean, I think right now we're kind of rehashing the same thing, and we understand everybody's point, I believe.
Madam Chair, we do have public comment cards on this item.
So, thank you, ma'am.
Bonnie Larson, Tommy Walker, Ernestine Gordon.
Well, let me, we only have about 8 minutes, so let's,
Move to extend, Madam Chair,
how long?
indefinitely. This is the last item, right?
We have, not really, well,
Two board
more.
appointments, but those are.
Yeah, it should be quick.
Appointments,
Just to finish the agenda,
Yeah.
Yes.
including our comments or no comments?
We don't have to have a comments. I mean,
No comments for us?
No
At-
comments.
No comments.
Okay.
No comments.
All right, so we're just gonna finish, we're going to extend the meeting just to get through, but, just to get through the items. All right. Madam Clerk?
Bonnie Larson.
Madam Clerk, we're voting
Extend.
on extending until we get through to item number 19.
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel. Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All right, go ahead with public comment.
Bonnie Larson.
Bonnie Larson, $25,000 is pocket change when you're talking about hiring a department head, a good department head, and the city wants it. We were promised it, and we've got someone who can get that for us, but you're going to penny pinch everybody? I want to know, I'm going to vent for a second here. Where are those people who are fiscally responsible for our money? We have people here who lost millions of dollars. The IT department, look what that cost us. Paying insurance for people who don't work here for 5, 6 years. Where is that person? Still working here. We've been sued, Monroe Heights, that's in your district, Mr. Tradrick. That's going to cost us millions and millions of dollars above and beyond what we've already paid. Let Mr. Evans do his job. Now, my one thing I want to say here about this ordinance is that I think we should take out Mr. Evans' ability to pay within the range, because it's put together here with a book they're putting together, a handbook they're putting together. This needs major rework, because a problem we've had in Riviera Beach for many, many decades is we hire, I call it the friends and family plan. You're my friend, you're going to get the job, okay? Look what's in this ordinance here. It says, in the event a new or existing employee does not meet the minimum qualifications, we'll hire them anyway. No, we are justifying hiring people who walk off the street, and we're going to give them a good salary, maybe 10% less than someone who's had a good education and who has 30, 40 years of experience, and we're going to pay somebody walking off the street. It says right here, we'll hire somebody without the minimum requirements. No, that is not what we want in this city. We want the best, and we want the brightest. If we are hiring a new person, Riviera Beach has more employees than any other city our size. If we're hiring someone, we feel the need to hire one more person, that person needs to come here with education, experience, and ready to hit the road running. We can't have someone come in here and then we're going to have our employees train them. No. If we can justify needing an additional person, they need to be ready to go. Then none of this doesn't meet the minimum requirements. Then it says here that if they don't meet the minimum requirements within 1 year, they may be terminated. No may about it. They're gone. Okay, here. Now, we took this out. The progression of employee within the salary grades depends entirely upon merit. They want to take that out. No, that needs to stay there. There should be no provisions in the pay plan for automatic salary advancement, as all merit increases are to be based upon work performance. That should stay in there. They want to take this out. No, friends and family again. We've been there, we've done that, we're tired of it. And you see where that's gotten us? Look how many millions of dollars these unqualified people have have lost us, and we're talking about 25,000. They've lost us millions, and they're still working here. We're still paying them, giving them
Thank you.
advances. Thank you.
Tommy Walker, Ernestine Gordon, Mary Brown.
Good evening,
Good
council,
evening.
mayor, manager. Checks and balances, accountability, and being fiscal responsible. We know the charter is outdated. This item hasn't been addressed since 1973, as I read out there in the backup. I listened to the city manager on his last response. I listened to each and every one of you. As elected officials, first, I trust Jonathan in most all the things he do. But I hold you guys responsible. You talking about turning him loose to do those classification studies and paying people. We have good people right here in Riviera Beach. And I want you to understand this now. Maybe 40 to 50% of our residents are on the poverty line or below. When we making and spending all this money for department heads, I truly believe that he has the right plan and he want to do the right thing, but you have to understand, that's a lot of pressure. When you hire somebody, I think you should let the council help you out on that. But please, let's adopt the 25%. I like that. If we pay a person 25% over the classification study of or whatever that job is, shouldn't that put us right there in the range for most of those department heads? Now, like I say, a friend of mine told me planning without implementation is hallucination. Let's get this plan right so Jonathan can do his job. But still, I would think that the council will have last say-so as the elected official. Like I said, I believe in the manager. I just want checks and balances from this board, this elected board. So can we compromise and get this done? I'm sure you can do it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ernestine Gordon, Mary Brown, Dolores Williams.
Hello, my
Good
name is
evening.
Ms. Gordon, Ernestine Gordon. I don't know why we talking about, we want the city manager we got, okay? And I believe in Mr. Evans. That's what the people want. So we trust Mr. Evans to hire the people that we need. We are tired of you hiring people that don't even know how to do their job. We're losing money. A good example, look at Monroe Hike. You hire the people to do the roads. Now we got to pay all this money to have them done over again. So why we didn't hire someone know what they was doing at the beginning? So we want Mr. Evans to manage the city. Let him do his job. He is qualified. He had the experience. Let him do his job. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Brown, Dolores Williams.
Hi, Miss Mary Brown, Riviera Beach. Here it is right here. Here it is right here. In this election last year, those amendments passed more than you all were voted for because Ms. Brown was out pushing them. Why? Because we wanted good government. Hands off the leader. You had 3,705 people said hands off. Term limits. You had 3,963 people. City business. You had 3,938 people. Ethic rules. You have 4,226 people. Here it is right here. This is the final sheet. Right here. Right here. And not only that, with you all elected officials, here it is here. And some of these people that you're lining up with, they will never have a seat in this city here. Not as long as we stay alive in this city. We need to give this man here, Mr. Evans is not going to run away with you because Ms. Bram and others will not allow him to do that. But he needs to be able to do what he needs to do to move us to another level in this city here. Yes, it may be good employees around here, but they have failed this city. And when they failed this city, they failed we as residents. Look at Monroe Heights. That decision about Solartron, Miss Jones was fired because that building over there, we said we never wanted anything built over there because that encompassed our water supply. This city here will always have to, we will be in the red all, from eternal with this city without water because of Solartron site up there. I gave Miss Jones those papers. I was with actors Aaron Brockovich out there in the acreage. And every site that's contaminated out here, they gave me the papers and I've shared them with Miss Ruth Jones. So when you don't stay on watch for something like that, don't do that. Leave that place as it is. It's enough as it is. Your chair. Here it is here. You talk about monies. You all get $250,000 in your spending stifle. Mr. Evans' salary is only $200,000. Miss Bram can go on and on and on. Here it is here. Here it is here. And you sit here and talk about this man here, bringing somebody in here that's worthy that we need. Come on, boy, you got to get it together here. We're not in the Stone Age anymore. Our road map was done in 1973. This is 2020 here today. Where are we at? We're still in the same rut with the same brain functions. We're better than that.
Thank you.
Leave him alone. We'll hold him accountable and hold you all accountable too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dolores Williams.
That's it?
That's it.
All right. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson?
No.
Councilperson,
What are we voting on?
Just as is.
was
So
called,
I wasn't able
the
to offer an
question
amendment?
has been called, I thought.
Say that again?
You would call it, asking for me to call for the vote, am I correct?
Yeah, because weren't we done with discussion, or
So
you were
we're not
coming to
voting,
do?
we're not voting on calling the question. We are voting
We're
on
voting on the actual
issue.
item now.
Thank you.
Yes.
So let me just put on the record that I did preference earlier that I wanted to offer an amendment, but are you saying
I didn't
that?
hear that. No, I didn't hear that. I didn't.
Okay.
Are you all okay with pulling back, or so he can say
Well,
what
they
he
don't-
needs to say?
No, I don't know.
No, I can't offer an amendment?
All right. Mr. Lawson,
Sorry, Madam Chair.
are you,
We can call the question.
all right.
Okay, so I reserve my right for litigation because no member can deny me the opportunity to offer an amendment. Am I right?
You can offer an amendment and then it has to be voted on.
In the
Right, and
middle
that-
of us voting now, or what?
Right, but you called the
No, but-
question before I was able to offer an amendment.
I didn't hear you say you wanted to do an amendment. Maybe I missed that. I didn't hear that. I don't have a problem with him doing it, but I didn't hear him say that.
Okay. Well, can I be recognized, Madam Chair, for an amendment?
Are we good to
No, let him
go
go
there?
ahead.
Okay.
Okay, I offer an amendment to increase the manager's spending authority above the 10% to 25%, and to remove the requirement to have to bring the specific names back to city council, but to still have city council approval.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier?
No.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel?
No.
Chairperson Miller Anderson?
No.
That motion fails.
All right. The original ordinance as is? Okay, yep.
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson?
No.
Councilperson Lanier?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
No.
Pro Tem Botel?
Yes.
Chairperson Miller Anderson?
Yes.
That motion is approved.
All right. No items tabled, regular discussion and deliberation, board appointments, item number 18.
Police Pension Board members' appointment?
All right, Mr. Evans. Are there any public comment cards on this?
Madam Chair, there are no public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Okay. Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, if I can have Ms. Young present this item to the board, this item and the immediately following item.
All right.
Good evening again, Eureka.
Young for the Human Resources Department.
Good evening.
Good evening. Okay. The Police Fire Pension Board currently have 2 vacancies, and 2 members of the board have submitted the request for reappointment to the board, and those members are Mr. Juan Atkins and Miss Billy Brooks.
All right. Any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair, if I may, in the future, can we take these items under consent? Because that's a long time for residents to wait to be appointed to
I
boards.
think we mentioned that, you mentioned that before, and I think we said yes, I believe.
Wait, you know, the chair had a very unique processing when she wanted to appoint planning and zoning board members, so I thought.
What chair?
Oh, never mind.
The
I'm sorry.
chair?
Yeah.
The current chair?
Yeah.
What was that? I don't recall that one.
I'm not voting on those 3 candidates.
Well, I have the option to pull it. I mean, I can always do that, you know. I don't remember what you're talking about, but I can always pull it.
Pull it.
All right. So do we need a motion to accept?
I make a motion to accept the recommendations for the police, is it police?
Pension
Police
board.
pension board members for City of Riviera Beach.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Item number 19?
Quickly, I just want to say thank you. And Atkins could not come tonight because his wife had dental surgery.
Okay, no
So he
problem.
wanted you to
Thank
know
you all
that.
so
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Board appointment to the Firemen's Pension Trust Board. Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, I would ask that Ms. Young make this presentation, and then also as a point of clarity, we are going to look to change the name of that board to firefighter versus firemen.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Eureka Young again, Human Resources Department. This is an application for reappointment of Mr. Henderson to the Fire Pension Fund. Mr. Henderson has completed the certification requirements, and he has the approval of the Fire Board for reappointment.
I'd like to
All
make
right,
a
any
motion.
questions, comments? All right,
Second.
what was it? You had a motion?
Ms. Lanier made
I'd like
the
to make a motion
and
to
Mr. McCoy second.
approve the board appointments for the firefighters pension trust board.
All right, and the second was?
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All right, with that, we stand adjourned.